Blether.
Yeah.
Good evening. Welcome along to another Blether with. We're going to get in the frame. There we go. Change the camera angle. That looks a bit better.
That's going to freak me out all night being the wrong. Yeah, that messes with my head. It's fine. I'll be fine. But it's
sure?
Mess. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just going to mess with my head all night.
We can, if we do this, this is going to mess with your head even more.
I see that'll mess with my head. I see that thing. My hand's going the right way now. But you'll be used to the other way. So this is going to mess with your head.
We'll be fine. As long as it doesn't mess with the guys at home's head. And they can still read the labels, which I guess they will. Anyway, good evening. You will notice we're in a different scene. Tonight we're in the tasting room at the Whisky Shop. Stewart is here for a couple of days. He's doing a barrel talk with us tomorrow. He is joining us tomorrow night for an evening tasting. So we thought, why not bring him in a day early, get him upstairs in the tasting room, and we'll do the chat from here. You'll notice there's no cat. She is joining us. She's going to be here just a little bit later on. I don't know why. She just told me she was going to be late. That's it. We don't ask questions. But great to see so many of you joining in already. We've got who have we got? We've got Dave. Good evening. Pete Head, Frank. Good evening to you. Dutch Jura. Never had any Torabhaig. Slap to you. I'm sure we'll get some to you. David started off with the Glencadam Andalusia Oloroso Sherry Cask. Nice.
That's a nice drum.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Glencadam.
Yes.
It is excellent. Dave, what are you drinking tonight? It's a spot for choice, absolutely. Dave's collection is pretty special. I noticed you got a couple of the Sherry Bomb, who've just done a bottling from Alistair Walker.
Okay.
Frequent Flyers, he's got some pretty banging sherry casks out there. Scott is saying good evening. No Torabhaig again, but looking forward to tasting tomorrow night. Yeah, Scott's got the virtual pack. He's going to be joining us.
Okay, nice.
So he's got the glass with 10-year-old in the glass tonight. Hello, Rob. Good to see you. Dutch Jura sticking to the island theme with an Aaron 10 to start. I like that, just to start. And Rob Smith is looking forward to this weather, as are we. It's going to be great fun. Get your questions in. Let us know what you're up to this weekend, what you've been doing in the world of whiskey recently. It's always great to hear your stories. So I guess talking of stories, this is where I'll pass over to you. Who are you? What do you do? What's your story in whiskey? And how many other world records do you have apart from the longest Blether?
So has it remained as the
I
long?
don't think it had. I think
Did it get beaten?
there was a special we had when Russell left, and it ended up being like 6 hours.
Okay, yeah, no, that's yeah.
But that was a one-off. That's like
Yeah.
Star Wars extended edition.
Yeah, that was. I think last time was about 3 hours, and I think that was a little over a year ago.
It would have been.
So
was it with Kat or was it with?
No, it was Russell.
Russell. So it was at least 2 years ago then.
Oh, it's not 2 years.
2 years in March since Russell.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was thinking about it earlier and trying to figure out when that was. So yeah, because it was towards the end of Russell.
Yeah.
Being here, not the end of Russell.
He's dead to us.
He's gone. He's disappeared. No longer exists.
Did that the hand wave? You waved your hand.
Oh yeah.
So we had this. We had great fun with Chris from Berry Brothers. I can't remember how we do it. We'll just. I think we ended up just changing the camera. Talk amongst yourselves, guys. So Stuart, I mean, the focus is on you, so you can't.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah, that was many questions. So, who am I? I'm global brand ambassador for Torabhaig Distillery and Mossburn Distillers. So, Mossburn is the parent company of Torabhaig. So, I've been with the company for going on for 3 years now. So, joined as UK ambassador in 2022. Became global last year. It's been a hectic 3 years. It's been great. Role has kind of evolved a little bit, which is cool. So doing a little bit of European stuff, which is great. But it's still, I mean, it's still focused on all the same kind of stuff, so tastings and trainings and all of that kind of stuff. So, but I've been in whiskey for about 6 years now.
Cool.
Started out at Tomatin, so I was at Tomatin for 3 years as a tour guide, and then I got this role with Mossburn and Torabhaig, and I feel like I got into Torabhaig at a really good time. We were, from my perspective, we were past that phase of we don't have whiskey yet. So we had whiskey out on the market. Because I think, working for a brand for that first 3 years, where you've got no liquid, I think that is going to be pretty challenging. So I got in just a really nice time. But being in this early with a brand is great. So lots of opportunity to see how things change and see how things develop, which is super cool. Now, I think when it turned, I waved that way. So let's.
I'm Googling controls to work this damn thing.
So yeah. Petehead, yeah, I was talking to a couple of people the other day who are headed to Limburg. I'm not headed to Limburg. I say unfortunately because I'm here. So it's not that unfortunate really. So it's there's two ambassadors, there's myself and Bruce, who's our other global ambassador. So between us, we kind of carve up the world. I'll stop waving my hand about.
I'd say that should unlock the target. So I move that. Yeah,
there we go. Nice.
So,
okay.
So no palms to the screen.
Okay. I will remember no palms. So if I need to wave my hand, I have to. No, I won't.
Do with a fist.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's my journey so far, really. It's been a busy 6 years. Obviously 2 of them at Tomatin and COVID.
Yeah.
So that was.
So I guess Torabhaig would have just been producing spirit when you started whiskey. When was that? 2017.
2017 we started producing whiskey. So at that point, I was still running the post office.
Really?
Yeah. So a bit of a change.
Licking stamps to
drinking
drams.
Exactly. It's funny. It was kind of through circuitously. It was kind of through the post office that I ended up getting into whiskey. So local hotel manager did his banking with us. Was in one day. I was doing his banking. I was chatting away. He was telling me they had some events that were short staffed that weekend. My background is bartending, and I was like, I'm going to do a bar shift. Did 2 shifts that weekend. I was on the rota by the end of the weekend. So I was doing like two evenings a week, just kind of on the side. And the hotel had about 100 whiskies on the bar. So that's when I was already into whiskey, but I hadn't really learned much about it.
Sure.
So wanting to be able to do a better job of selling whiskey, I started doing learning my own research. And that's where I got the bug. And it was reading about copper contact. That was the thing. Like, suitably nerdy for me.
As you do. Casual.
So, reading about what impact copper contact has on the spirit was what suddenly made me go, wow, this is super interesting. There's so much to this.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it than just casks. So that was the thing that really kind of grabbed me.
It takes a hold of you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whiskey. And nobody really starts off by saying, I'm going to be a whiskey geek.
No.
People start, okay, I'll give it a bash. I'll try a drink of whiskey and see if I like it. And then if they like it, then that's when the story starts. Unless, you're somebody like, Rachel Barry or Billy Walker who started off in the chemistry side and get invited into the whiskey. That's a different story altogether. But as a punter, I've never heard anyone say, you know what, I'm going to be a whiskey geek, I'm going to read up on it, and then I'm going to try it and taste it and see what it's like. It just grabs a hold of you from almost the first sip.
Yeah. It took me a while to get into whiskey. Right. So it was my wife really that got me into whiskey. So when we met, she was already a whiskey drinker, and I wasn't a fan to begin with. I've had I'm not going to say a bad experience, I'd had a negative experience with Laphroaig. Not to the point where I had been completely put off being able to drink whiskey, but I'd been at a Boxing Day party, and we'd been out to the pub. We got back to the house, and the only booze left in the house was a bottle of Laphroaig. And at that time, I did not drink whiskey at all. Like at that time, I was a rum and coke drinker. And
did you put coke in the whiskey?
There wasn't any coke. If there had been coke, I would have put coke in it. I ended up, so it was in a tumbler, and I ended up, I think, probably started with about 50 ml, and the rest of it topped up with water. So I actually had a Laphroaig cordial. I still didn't like it. I still had to force it down. And that, I think, probably put me off whiskey for about the best part of 10 years.
Yeah.
And then gradually I got into it. So, we would have a couple of bottles in the house. And I would have a dram with Mrs. And that's what kind of got me into it. That's what helped me find whiskies that I liked.
Yeah.
And started with massive block of ice, tons of water, and then gradually kind of got away from both of those.
I quite similar. I think I've told the story before. I started drinking whiskey without ice because of a broken ice machine in O'Donoghue's. And it was always Jameson we drank, and it was because it was an Irish bar. My first whiskey really that I drank regularly was Jameson's. Loads of ice. One night they came through and said, "Ice machine's broken, guys. You have to drink it neat." Oh, here we go. Took a sip and I said, "Actually, this is pretty good." And the next time you think, was it just because it was kind of well on? It was near the end of the night, so I tried it again and thought, no, I'm not going to take ice with it anymore.
Yeah.
And because of that, I started probably drinking less variety of whiskey, because without the ice, you really got that note, like phenolic notes or the different cask notes. But the ones that I liked, I actually found myself liking them even more.
Yeah.
And that's what started me on that exploration of, what, this is not just a drink to drink in the pub and get drunk on. There's something different here that is worth exploring.
And then you end up, you go down that road of you have like one or two bottles on the shelf at home, and then very quickly your buying overtakes your drinking.
Yeah,
and you have to turn your spare room into a whiskey room.
Yeah.
It just gets, and I think that's a story that so many people have, that they start with, I'm not going to have a big collection of whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm only ever going to have a couple on the shelf. I'll just get that one.
Oh, that was it. Oh, that's new. That's shiny.
Yeah.
And a lesson I learned at the house was, so obviously we had Killian 2 years ago. All my whiskey was in what was to be his nursery. So as we removed them, we did a log on them. I think it was like 282 open bottles of whiskey there. But when we moved it into my garage, it looked like a little corner in the garage. So if your other half, whether it's your husband or your wife, complains about the size of your whiskey collection, the trick is to move it into a bigger room so it looks like a smaller collection.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's a tried and tested trick. The annoying thing is it was her who was doing the counting, so she knew that it didn't get any smaller. She knew exactly how many bottles we had. So yeah.
I think the interesting thing when you do move it like that is you suddenly discover how many bottles you have with like 3 drams.
Yeah.
Like next to nothing left in them.
Yeah.
So we did that recently. We were getting new heating fitted, so we emptied the shelves just because we're like, I don't want them getting shaken off. And that was when I discovered all of these bottles with like 3-4 drams in them. So they got moved to the kitchen. So like we have two. Our spare room is our whiskey room.
Yeah.
And that's that's the main collection. And then the stuff in the kitchen is what I refer to as tanning whiskey. So it's just it's like and there has been some stuff which has graduated from being something that was a 1 dram job to we're now down to 3 grams. So it's like that's now to be tanned.
Yeah.
To be seen away.
Yeah. Not for sitting and collecting dust, because the more bottles you have, the more dusting you've got to do.
Yeah.
Who we got? Jeremy's asking what happens when some is in the bedroom, the spare room, and the storage room.
So that is called drinking stations. That's what those are called. So it means that wherever you are, there is whiskey. There's whiskey on hand. So you just need to add some glasses to each drink station, and then you're sorted. It doesn't matter where you are. There's a dram.
Sounds good. Right, I did get shouted at the other week because I'd come home and I had a rep in and gave me some samples. And just as I was leaving the shop, popped in my pocket. I was getting ready for bed. Oh, so I put them in the sink. And then I was going to pick them up, but about 2 days later, Tony, Mike, why is there whiskey in the ensuite? Yeah, it's like there's literally every room in the house has some form of whiskey. And I'm going to jump back to Rob Smith. Rob is on YouTube. He's asking, are any of the Mossburns behind us a Teenanic? These aren't, but we have a Teenanic in the shop. So this is the lineup for our tasting, which we're doing with Stewart tomorrow night, minus the 2017, which we will open later on tonight. So we've got the latest 3 of the Torabhaig chapters. But I guess we could talk about Mossburn because that's where the Torabhaig journey began, isn't it?
Yeah.
With Mossburn Distillery.
Yeah, so Mossburn is.
I guess we could pour a draft, couldn't we?
That would seem to make
We'll
sense.
start with the North British. Or
I think start with the DuPont. Actually. So Mossburn is we've been producing whiskey since the 90s. So the company was originally started by our whiskey maker Neil MacLeod Matheson. Started as a company called Eau de Vie. He was importing brandies, cognacs, armagnacs, rums, you name it. He was importing it, and he was also bottling and blending Scotch. So he was doing indie bottling, and he was producing some blended malts. And that company then ultimately became Mossburn, and Mossburn is the owner of Torabhaig. So Mossburn is a bottler and blender and distiller. So we produce indie bottlings. We're not a super prolific bottler. We do 6 to 10 releases, expressions a year. One outturn. So we're not bringing stuff out every quarter. We release what Neil thinks is ready. And it's a bit of a range of Speysides, Highlands, and some lowlands, and we've got a grain here as well. And we also produce blended malts. So we have our 2 signature blended malts. We have a Speyside and we have an Highland, and those are finished in custom-made hybrid casks. We've got a peated blended malt called Castle Camas, which has an older sibling, 12-year-old, and then this. So that was a very long-winded way of me getting to this whiskey. So this is a Speyside blended malt. This is the second in our cask collaboration series. And so the story before is relevant because Neil, for a long time, the start to the business was he was importing these other spirits. And one of those spirits that he was importing was DuPont Calvados. So made by Etienne Dupont. So long old friend of Neil's. So when he came to create this series, that he was the obvious kind of person to get in touch with. So you might have seen last year, we released one that was a collaboration with Foursquare. So again, that was a 12-year-old Speyside finished in Foursquare casks. Sorry, that was the year before last. I lose track of what was last year and the year before last. This was last year.
This year was going by so quick.
Yeah,
it feels like last
year. I just completely. And when we talk about, I think in the trade, I think you almost tend to get into the feeling of the year doesn't really start till the middle of the year because that's when it gets mental. It just gets busier and busier and busier up till Christmas, and then you just crash. So you feel like that's the year. Anyway, this came out last year in the autumn. So this was finished for at least 12 months in those Calvados casks. And it's a really lovely, light, delicate, really tasty after dinner brand.
It's got a really nice crisp, appley sharpness to it. There is a bit of heat in it as well. It's 57 point.
Yeah, 57.2.
But although there's that tingle, there's that kind of sensation. It's not a burn. It's not hot, but you can tell it's got that ski strength with it. But the flavor of it is outstanding.
Yeah, for something strong, it is pretty easy drinking. But you're right. You know it's not a 46%.
Yeah.
You're not going to be tricked.
It's like a fairground kind of candy, toffee, apple, kind of outdoor alfresco kind of feel. You know, if you're drinking outdoors.
Yeah.
It's that freshness. It's quite a. It's not my first time having this, but it's the first time in a kind of sit down examine. I think the first time I had it was when you did the launch of it.
Yeah, we did the
example,
virtual.
and it was working, so I didn't. This is work, obviously, as well. But and it was just kind of I want to know what it tastes like, so we can pitch it to customers. So the first time I could really kind of get it around the gums and inhale the dram, and it's good.
For me, it's apple strudel. It's apple, it's spice fruit, it's that little bit of pastry. Now, what I'm not sure about is if it really is apple strudel to me, or if that's because the first time I tried it was in Austria.
Okay.
So I was in Austria the first time I tasted this. So I'm not sure if that. I don't know whether it's psychosomatic, or I actually do really get apple strudel.
Yeah, the fact the first time you had it, you were sitting next to an Austrian baker. And
yeah, exactly.
It was just wow.
That could have been part of it.
Yeah. And also the fact it's Calvados. I think
yeah.
we know Calvados is going to have that link, and subconsciously you're looking for it. We've spoken about this before in the blend, is how the experience or the pre-knowledge of what you're drinking can sometimes indicate what you're going to taste.
Yeah.
Incidentally, guys, if you haven't tried the previous edition of this, which is the rum cask, the 4 Square rum cask, a 12-year-old Speyside blended malt. If you're a fan of the Balvenie Caribbean cask, but think, you know what, this just lacks a little bit of body because of that 43%, go for that. It's just like it's Balvenie 14 on steroids. It's so good, so robust, but very similar kind of flavor profile. You know that rum cask, that Speyside character is there.
But the rum cask is just, it's dialed up in comparison. Yeah. So Caribbean cask actually was the first whiskey that I sort of fell in love with. It wasn't the whiskey that made whiskey click, that made me get it, but it was the first time I tasted a whiskey and I'm like, this is I totally get what everybody's talking about. I totally get all of these flavors. So then when I experienced the 4 Square cask, for me it's just that just turned right up. But it is interesting the perception thing and what people are expecting, and so one of the things that I do, so part of my job is to host customers at the distillery, and so one of the things that I do when we're there, so for us Torabhaig is peated whiskies. For us, we wanted to produce a peated whiskey that wasn't what people expected from the peated. And so one of the things that I do is I give people 5 whiskies, 3 Torabhaigs and the 2 Castle Canases, and I ask them to rank them in terms of peatiest to least peaty, or first, however you want to put it. And these are people in the trade. So these are people who taste and knows a lot of whiskey. And out of the 5 drams, most people normally get 1, maybe 2 right. And they're just completely thrown off because when you've got something that's a bit more medicinal versus something that's a bit more bonfire-y smoke, we all have this preconceived idea of what it tastes like.
So you started off when you're saying measuring on a scale of peatiness, so you're talking about ppm as a number.
Yeah. So empirically, so we know empirically what is the peatiest residual. So in the glass, not in grain, which is a useless number. We're talking about in the glass.
Tell that to the Optimal brand.
So we talk about, so we tell you the in glass or residual phenols, which is much more relevant. And that's always, and the number of people who go away and they're like, that was really interesting. I'd never thought about it like that. And as I say, these are people in the trade. So, when you bring that to consumers, people who are drinking casually rather than drinking professionally like you and I, it's a totally different ballgame.
It's it's amazing when you get into that. Like I say, we said right at the start, you get hooked on it and you look for more information. And even after drinking for a couple of years, in the shop, when I've kind of found out about the ppm and the effect you can change that level of peatiness throughout the distillation and maturation, and then even after we've had in the water, how that affects it. It just blew my mind, and it's like, I've got to know more about this. It's still, to this day, when you talk to people about peat, and it's a little bit similar to age as well. And I understand why we have it. It's so easy to look at a number and think, there's a scale I understand, and I can put a point to it. 12-year-old is not going to be as good as 80-year-old because it's older. 50 ppm is not going to be as peaty as a 77 ppm because it's lower. And it's all great for show. It's great to put on the bottles and all that. But if you want that further understanding, where does the peat come from? How, is it combined with a hot air drying method? Is it, distilled through your cut points? Is it a low cut point? Is it a high cut point? And even the cask, is it European oak, American oak? That makes a difference.
Level of char. So is it is it level 1 or is it alligator char? Is it just toasted? All of these things have a bearing on it, and it's. I think most of us, going back to that, you don't get into it with the intention of becoming a whiskey geek. Most of us who go on to become whiskey geeks, we reach a certain point where it's that whole Dunning-Kruger thing, where we suddenly go, actually, I don't know anything about this. I thought I knew a lot. But we all, at some point, you'll be having a conversation with somebody. For me, it was when I did Edinburgh Whisky Academy's diploma in single malt. That was the point when I was like, okay, I know nothing here. There's this huge, wide world of whiskey stuff, and that I just didn't know about. And I think that happens to most people who become whiskey geeks. And
even the guys who have been in it, you speak to somebody like Billy Walker or Charlie McLean, and they'll say they're learning all the time as well. They've made careers out of it. 56. David Stewart, for example, he's like, there's still things that surprise me. It's things I learn every day. It's like, it's mind blowing. And just to put a little bit of context on the ppm, Lefroy, which we talk. Can you handle Lefroy now? Can you drink Lefroy?
I can handle Lefroy. I don't normally choose to, but I can handle it.
You would reach for the Coke if you had. 48 ppm, I think, in the grain.
35 is the number that I heard, but you could be.
So
there.
We'll round it up to 40.
Oh, 40.
Torabhaig, round about 77.
So the new one is 80.
80.
So
double that. But drink it. So if you have in your head that Lefroy is the peatiest whiskey you're ever going to have because of the medicinal qualities, it's half of the ppm is one of these guys. But drink it and experience for yourself what the difference is. In terms, so Kilchoman, I think, is about the same as Lefroy. Two completely different brands because of the way they treat the spirit. So you never stop learning. Rob's just put that in the comment there. And good evening to Tim and Donner Pass Whiskey. You guys are jumping in late, but welcome along. Yes, Kat has promised that she will make a show. Not make a show. Make an appearance.
That's a whole different Blether.
The make a show is not promised, but knowing Kat, it'll happen.
But so the Mossburns are, I suppose, an opportunity for Neil to play, to show off to a degree. Neil is fascinating. Neil is a little bit. I saw him in an article described as a ninja of whiskey. He's been in the trade for about 30 odd years. Every one of the names that we have mentioned over the last little while, so people like Charlie, people like Billy, people like Charlie McLean, everybody, Neil knows them. It's hilarious trying to walk around a festival with Neil. Because everybody in the industry knows him, but the punters don't. Because he's just kind of flown below the radar. So within the industry, really well known. And so he's a really fascinating character to spend time with. I don't get to spend that much time with him, but this year I spent a couple of days on Skye with him. And it's just constantly got these little stories that are just you get halfway through and you're like, I've just figured out who you're talking about,
Right.
because he's just mentioned them by first name. So like I've known him long enough now to know that when he says Billy, he means Billy Walker. When he says Charlie, he means Charlie.
Yeah.
But it took me a while. So like, you know, it took me a while to figure out that whenever he was saying that, he wasn't just talking about some bloke, some guy called Richard. It's like, oh, okay, you know, that's Richard Patterson, or whoever it was. But he would not, the opportunity to show off, if he could show off without having his name on it, I think he would.
Okay.
If he could put whiskey out there and have people go, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
I wonder who made it. And for him to just be sitting quietly in the corner saying nothing.
He's a genius in his lab.
Yeah. So with Mossburn, that's kind of what Mossburn is. His opportunity to work with different woods, to work with different liquids. So the signature blended malts are a perfect illustration of that. And the genesis of them with the hybrid casks is they came from the early days of Mossburn, when Neil was trying to do more with less. So if you're creating a blended whiskey or a blended malt, the ideal is that you have loads and loads of stock. So you can re-rack things, and that gives you lots of, we describe it as paints to paint with. It gives you lots of different options to play with. When you don't have an awful lot of liquid, you have to try and find a workaround. So we produce a Speyside blended malt, and that's finished in a hybrid which is made of a sherry butt with heavy charred virgin American oak ends. If we had tons and tons of liquid, I guess he would have probably put a load of it into sherry butts and a load of it into virgin American ASBs, but we didn't have enough liquid for that. So that was how those came about. So for Neil, a lot of it is about working with the different woods, the different casks, and the cask collaborations are a prime example of that.
Excellent. Yeah, Neil. I haven't met him yet, but I would love to get in a room with him.
Yeah,
we're going to welcome Distillery Kat into the room now that she's finished her mouthful of tea. Hello.
Evening, Kat.
Thank you. I was aware that I was scooping tea and you could press go live at any second.
Normally I would have, but I'm feeling kind tonight, seeing as you've obviously had a bit of a harassed day getting into the room and all that. I thought, no, I'm going to make it a nice, gentle segue and just introduce you nice and calmly.
Thank you. My lighting, I'm so sorry I'm late, everyone, as well. And I think my internet's really bad again, and my lighting's really bad. I'm just going to go and try and fix my lighting. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, there did seem to be a little bit of lag there.
I think she needs to wake up the hamster, get the kids off the internet.
Is this just Aberdeenshire internet? Is that what it is?
This is. I mean, the last few weeks it's been a little bit better than in brewery.
Okay.
I think it's better that we're in the shop because the internet here we kind of, because we have the virtual tastings. And kind of had to upgrade a bit, but hopefully, Kat. So it sometimes does pick up after a minute or two running. So hopefully.
So once it warms up a little bit, it sorts itself out. Yeah, I get that. It needs to stretch.
It needs to stretch. The thing is, if we keep talking,
I'm going to say too much because I'm aware that I'm about 3 minutes behind you guys.
If we keep talking, then you'll never get the chance because we'll just continue. You won't have that break long enough.
Yeah,
from us to jump in.
Yeah, we probably need Kat to put her hand up when she wants to say something so that we can pause for long enough. Okay, so that is how long that delay is. Okay.
I'm just going to go and chase my kids off the internet because this is really shit. Give me 2 minutes.
So Mossburn, blended malts. So I thought we'd start on this one. just it's the kind of lightest of these, so it was a nice one to start with. And so we also have we've got a bunch of indies. So we've got a North British here, and we've got a Craigellachie. So these are both on the tasting tomorrow night. This is throwing me off slightly with
you put up the hand. I think if you just put up the hand, it cancels, and then when this goes green, we can move it back. Oh no, that's when it goes blue, we put it back.
There we go.
There we go.
So yeah, so this is throwing me off slightly.
This is all Cat's fault.
So we take a slightly unusual approach to our tasting. So anybody who is joining tomorrow night, we don't taste in this or in the order that we're tasting tonight, and we start over there, and we start with peat. So it's for the purposes of tonight, I'm talking about Mossburn first. It makes sense. So this is always a little bit unusual for me. Starting with the unpeated.
I bet you that just tastes like apple juice after you've gone through some of the Torabhaigs.
Yeah, you're probably right. And particularly if we have the batch strength in the middle. So we then, although we quite often we'll stick it to the end, so we'll have it last. So we start with peat and we end with peat. You know, peat is our thing.
Peat is our friend.
Yeah. So we are very much peat focused. But yeah, so this is a nice one to start on though. Yeah, it's been a while since I've drunk this. I spend most of my life talking about Torabhaig.
Yeah.
So and we're about to launch the new one. So that's the one that we have been talking about a lot. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that one just now?
We can do.
Okay.
Or do you want to build up to it? I don't mind.
We'll start with that.
Let's start with if you're happy to crack that.
Yeah, absolutely. Never unhappy to crack open a bottle. Kat, if you were in the room with us, you know, not only would your internet be banging, but you know, you'd try this with us.
Yeah.
So we've got the 2017, which was the inaugural release from Torabhaig, called 2017 because that's when you started distilling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very imaginatively titled.
It's amazing. I mean, how much did you pay the marketing team for that?
Oh, I know. It's such a difficult one. I mean, I can't imagine what else we could have, or what we would have called it. You know, other than like, you know, so obviously, you know, Hollywood, they did Arrival, which was a great name for a first round. It's such a difficult one to know what on earth you would call your first whiskey from a new distillery. And I tell you what, I am really pleased with, Mike, is you took the whole of the foil off.
Yeah.
I'm probably the one person in the company who is slightly obsessive with that. So we have
it's not a common trait, as you can see. I didn't open these bottles.
So we have Torabhaig is round the neck of the bottle.
It's a nice little touch. I'm
in
not
the
sure if
glass.
you're going to make that on the camera, but it is embossed round just below the lid there.
So yeah, whenever we're at festivals, people usually give me a funny look because I end up stripping off the entirety of the foil, and they're like, "Why? What are you doing?" So yeah, it's always nice when somebody else does that too. Cheers. 2017.
Cheers, Kat.
Cheers, Kat.
Cheers.
Enjoy your tea.
Are you having a whiskey, Kat? Sorry, we didn't ask.
Has my internet caught up at any yet? Like, is it?
Yeah, massively.
Okay,
Yeah, you're much closer.
Okay, that is good. So I didn't manage to get what you guys are having, but I was at our head office yesterday down in Springburn, so I picked up something I've never had before. So I've got Connemara. I thought, why the hell not? So yeah, I do have that. I'm just finishing my cup of tea first. Pace myself the night, you know.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, you know, we're saying that last time Stewart was on the Blether, it was about 3 hours. So, you know, pacing yourself might be wise.
I'll need to pee.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of weird chat about telegraph poles.
Well, that's the Russell era.
Yeah, it was Russell era.
Kat talks about, you know, way more interesting things than telegraph poles.
I find the Telegraph poll conversation quite interesting. I like weird chat like that. It's the ADHD and the internet connection and an ability to randomly research completely random topics.
100%.
So 2017. This liquid was all distilled in 2017. It's all first fill bourbon. They were all ex-Heaven Hill casks. And it was a release of about 32,000 bottles. And they sold out in under 6 months. Shot up on secondary. So they shot up to about 250, 300 quid on the secondary market for quite a while. In fact, when I joined the company in 2022, that's what they were selling for. They have come down somewhat, haven't they, Mike?
Yeah. So I got this one. I think it was on Highland Whisky Auctions for about £50, which is it's below. It's with fees and everything is about 55, 60. So
yeah,
round about the RRP,
yeah.
Which is fantastic. What I love about it, apart from what I've just noticed, is a ridiculously off-skew label.
Don't mention the lineup of the label.
It's like so far off centre. Look at that.
That's not a common thing with Torabhaig.
I mean, when you're putting 5 labels on a bottle, surely one of them's going to be.
I mean, it's not like we use a machine.
Yeah. I should have opened that. I could go.
It really won't. There's a few out there that are rather skew. So, getting kind of a bit nerdy. The challenge is our bottling line is designed for round bottles, and the Torabhaig bottles are a squircle. So what happens is it grabs the little thing in the bottom, but then as it goes through, the shoulders catch, so it twists. So we have some issues with label alignment. They have massively improved, but it is still a challenge for the team.
That's why you've got a box.
Yes, exactly. That's why we have a box, which you'll notice has changed. We've gone through a couple of different iterations. Evolved is a good word, actually, and because that's how we think about the Legacy series. So the Legacy series is our journey to the release of a 10-year-old in 2028. So the idea of these is that each expression will chart the evolution as the whiskey develops, as it grows, as it matures, and as we see what it's doing. Because the fact of the matter is, we don't know what it's going to do. I have no doubt that Neil has an idea in the back of his mind of what he thinks a 10-year-old will be like, what kind of casks he thinks he's going to use. Mm-hmm. He's never told us, and he always says he doesn't. But I think it would be impossible in his position not to have been thinking maybe this, maybe that, maybe.
And I think with the experience that we have as well, what Neil has.
I'm going to have to set my hands.
He's going in. Have an understanding of where the casks are going.
Yeah.
Through he works with them all the time, and what he's doing, he's going to have an end game, and he'll know what casks to use to reach there. Surely, you think, well, these casks are heading up in that direction. I quite like that direction. I'm going to use these because he's obviously also thinking from back in 2017, what casks is he going to use for the Legacy series? What's going into the Oak and the Crocknamoine.
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly to begin with, I think the goal will have been let's create as many options as possible.
Yeah.
So just like everybody else, most of our liquid is going into ex-bourbon. Whether that's first fill or refill, that's where most of the liquid goes. And then we have a whole host of other things. So we've got all of the usual suspects. So we've got Olorosos, we've got PXs, we've got Madeira, we've got Cognac, we've got some Mezcal casks, we've got some Scottish Oak casks. We've basically everything that Neil could get his hands on. We've got some Caucasian Oak, which always feels weird to say. The oak from the Caucasus is just far more awkward. We've got a little bit of everything, and that is all. It's all stuff which may or may not form part of different battings, as we move through and as we move into the future, where we move into core range, because the legacy series by its nature is limited. That's the whole point of it. So each of these expressions, the rough idea is that they would be around for 12 to 18, maybe up to 24 months. That's kind of the idea. Old Cloud has been around a little while longer. It was always intended it would, and the plan shifted a little bit. But the idea was that basically, if you wanted to try it, you would get the chance to try it. You would be able to get it. But if you kind of missed that 18-month window, it would be gone. And if you really liked it, then you want to lay down a case of it. We wanted to, I think we probably wanted to discourage flipping. So we wanted limited, but not totally flippable.
Yeah.
So 2017, with being such a small release, that was flipped. But for us, we want the whiskey to be drunk, and that's why it's priced the way it is. So, notwithstanding inflation, the price of the 10-year-old will be basically what the price is now. So the new one is RRP of around 60 quid. So it's that price bracket that we want the 10-year-old to be in. Because what we never wanted to do was we didn't want to kind of get there and go, right, here's a new one, and we've bumped it up by 20-25.
100 quid now.
Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is, in 3 years' time, who knows what that 60 quid bracket, where that's going to be.
Yeah.
But given that
we come to the end of Trump's race, so it might be.
It might have recovered somewhat. Yeah. I mean, given that we started at 50 quid with the 2017, we're now up at that 60 quid. So it's not a huge change. But it's.
I remember the first tasting I had with Torabhaig. It was Bruce who was in, and we had the 2017. But it was the only liquid you had. I think by the tasting the new make, we had some in the 2017. Then the rest was Mossburn, and he laid out the plan to the 10-year-old. And I remember thinking, God, that seems so far away, and it's going to be really exciting to be on that journey. And we're over halfway now.
Yeah.
It's 2 years away. We're like, shit. If it's ready in that, I guess Neil's of the opinion that if it's not ready in 2027, it's not going out, and if he needs to tinker with it.
Yeah, I think that I have never been involved in a conversation like that. I think. We have
you don't need it because going by some of the stuff you're producing.
Yeah, I mean we have shifted the plan. So the original plan was what was it? 4 releases. So 2017, Oakline, Oakbreaker, something else. Yeah. So the original plan was 4 releases up until the 10-year-old, and that shifted, and we added in another couple, basically because Oakline had been around for a couple of years, and there was more demand for people wanting more from us, and also we felt that it was more ready than we were necessarily expecting. So I think that original plan gave us much more scope to, okay, we need to leave this a little bit longer, and then we realized that actually it was more ready than we thought. And so that was why bringing in those additional expressions made sense. This liquid would be the lowest in grain phenols that we have released. So this was 55 ppm in grain. And one of the things you'll notice if you've got the journey, if you've got the lineup. So when you look on the back labels, we like transparency. As a company, we're quite nerdy. We like the scientific aspect of things. It's one of the things I was really pleased with when I joined the company. That for us, it is about understanding the science, which allows us to reproduce things. So you'll notice as you look through them, the phenols have gradually increased, the in-grain phenols. And that started way back in the very beginning, because our first 12 months or so was research and development. as we changed something basically every week. So peat levels went up and peat levels went down. This yeast to that yeast to 2 yeasts to 7 kilos of yeast, 8 kilos of yeast, longer fermentation, shorter fermentation, cut points up, cut points. You name it, we changed it.
Wow.
So Neil had an idea in his head of what that spirit should taste like.
Okay.
And so we were just always working towards getting that. And I have no doubt we took steps backwards as well as steps forwards. Because, you know, day one, you go into the distillery and you're like, okay, we know we want to produce a delicate spirit. We want to produce a clean spirit. We know we want to produce, as Neil says, the kind of peated whiskey that he would like to drink. So Neil is not a big fan of medicinal. So we knew all of that. So we knew that we wanted a lighter ton so that we would get nice clear wort. We knew we wanted long fermentations. We knew we wanted slow distillations. And we had a pretty good idea that we probably were going to want high cut points. Mm-hmm. But until you try it, until you do that first mash and then it sits in the washbacks for your 90 hours. And it's not until you distill it. I mean, I think that must have been a terrifying day. Or a terrifying couple of weeks as the first spirit came off.
Yeah.
And you're like, can we actually make what we want to make? Have we spec'd this right?
Yeah.
I think it must have been incredible and incredibly exciting. And not least because we brought in 9 people who had never made whiskey before.
Yeah.
So like their first day was, this is the on switch for the mash tun. You know, it was that kind of level. You know, they'd never done this before. And so as a result of that, when you look at the whiskies, the peating has gradually increased because over the course of that year, we realized actually we need to bump it up, bump it up, bump it up. You'll notice there's different strains of barley on there. There's different strains of yeast. Again, that's as they were messing around and going, we'll try this yeast, we'll try that yeast, we'll try combining these yeasts. Now, our recipe is basically standardized. We run 80 ppm. That's our standard. We run our mash tun super slow, so we get really clear wort. We run 90-hour fermentations, and we use Distillamax powdered yeast. We run our stills slow, and we run the same cut points. So, you know, most of the time, 10 months of the year, we're producing to a recipe.
And then for 2 months, you just let it go.
So 1 month we play, we mess about, and the other month we shut down and fix things. Slightly weirdly, our silent season is in November, which is having come from a distillery that has a summer silent season, which is far more traditional. To one with
any shutdown in summer.
Not a planned one. No. We often have a tendency to have unplanned ones because we run out of water.
Yeah. That's traditionally why the shutdown was, isn't it?
So for us, the reason why we have our silent in November is that was the slot we could get for our boiler to be serviced.
Really?
It's that simple. So the guys who service the boiler service a bunch of other people's boilers, and they're like, you can have November. And we're like, okay, fine, I guess it's November.
Store the water.
Yeah. So we, last year I think we lost 7 to 10 days production.
Okay.
So not a lot. I mean, Skye is known for rain.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of water.
You're all right. Yeah.
So there's normally about a week where it gets quite hot, and we have a week's or so shutdown, and then of course you've got the odd breakage, the odd breakdown. So to balance that out, we have a period of 24-hour running in the early part of the year, and a period of 24-hour running at the end of the year. So between those two, the one at the end of the year is I think probably the worst one for the team because it's never part of the plan. The one at the start of the year is planned; they know it's coming. Mm-hmm. But the one at the end of the year, the more shutdowns they have, the more 24-hour they have to do, kind of in the run up to Christmas almost. Yeah. So that's I think that's the one that they look forward to least.
Kat, I've just got a question in for you. So we're going to get you talking because you've been very patient and very quiet. When you jumped up to kick off your kids, Donna passes asked, I see Kat on the shelf. You've got the Hakushu Distillers Edition do you get fresh cucumber on the nose on that one? He thought it was very nice and pretty different from the 12, which is wonderful too.
So good question, but I haven't actually opened it. So as you're aware, I have a lot of whiskey, but I don't drink a lot of it. So but when I do try it, I will bear that in mind, and I will let you know.
We will. I mean, if I didn't know you better, I'd ask you to go and crack it open now. But yeah, we don't have all night.
Yeah, I haven't got the energy for that. Definitely not. I'll open it for next week. I'll do it for next week's dram, and then we'll know.
It's funny. I mean, that was kind of sort of what we were talking about at the beginning. Is like in the trade we have access to too many whiskies, and you kind of forget to open stuff.
Yeah,
it's a testament to how good a bottle is, especially something from an indie or a limited release. If I go back and buy a second bottle, because you buy one, you enjoy it. By the time you've finished it, there's something new out and something you want to play with that's out there. But to actively go back and say, no, I want a second bottle of that. Yeah, it is probably the highest accolade I could give to some of these cool bottles. Frank, he's saying, he's going back to your Sky comment. He says, Netherlands, most of the rain comes from the sky.
Hey! That's. See, that kind of joke is right up my street, and I should have noticed. I should have picked up on that. I should have thought of that.
I've got it down.
Yeah, I am. I am a big fan of a stupid pun. I think my best instance of that was on Sky when we were tasting the new. We were over. Bruce and I were over with Neil, and so we were tasting basically everything that is coming in the next year or two from Torabhaig, from Mossburn, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So. And some of it was single casks that we have in the warehouse there. And Bruce and I were down in the warehouse going through all of the casks. There you go.
I did focus on you because you're the one talking most of the time.
So we were down in the warehouse, and we were drawing a sample from a cask, and I stepped back to see what it was, and I went, "Oh, this will be an expensive one, Bruce." And he went, "Really?" And I went, "Oh, aye, it's a Madeira cask." Just terrible.
Oh my God.
It took him a second, and then he went, I think
Bruce, whiskey you got.
Bruce is long suffering with my humour. He was on Sky with us last week briefly, and he had posted a picture of that cask, and I went, "Oh, how did so and so like the expensive cask?" And he went, "Do you mean the expensive cask?" And Matthew from Good Spirits was there as well, and he went, "Do you mean a Madeira cask?"
Yeah.
I think it must be a bit more of a Glasgow thing, the Madeira cask. So yeah, the rain coming from the sky is right up my street.
I like Jeremy's comment as well of does cock oak sound better? And I think if you were talking about Stewart Dick with his cock oak, I think you'd be getting the wrong audience.
I did have a conversation with people about starting an only drams, but I think that might get the wrong audience.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've told the story like a million times, but I ended up as the Distillery Cat on Instagram because I thought that's what Mike called me, but he called me the Distillery Tart. So very, very different vibes there. Yeah. Not because I'm, just a whole bag. It's because I work for so many different distilleries.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't judging you either way, Kat. I was like, hey, more power to you.
Definitely not the case. Talking about puns, moving away from that completely, talking about puns. So the guys at work every morning, like they'll ask, are you busy today? We've got tourism. And I always say, yeah, we've got a few cruise ships coming in. every single time, one of those idiots will say, "Oh, where are you parking the boat?" And you're like, "Oh, good one."
Yeah.
Like, you're so nice. You guys are so funny. So yeah, you gotta love a crappy joke.
Yeah, no, that's those are my favorite kind, and also everybody just got to see the biggest challenge for me with doing a tasting is my obsession with going off on stupid tangents.
I love a tangent. It's what makes the Blether real, I think. You can drop the brand and chat. Absolute
They're
nonsense, but it's educational. Nonsense.
Yeah. Well.
Dutch Jura, will we go down the traditional age statements in our core range? Broadly speaking, yes, that's the plan. So that's what we're talking about, but our plans have changed already. So don't hold me to a definite yes. But broadly speaking, that's kind of what we're thinking.
It's out on the internet now, though, so it's gospel.
But I threw enough caveats in there. I feel that I have left myself enough of a backdoor to say, well, I said maybe. Yeah, that is always the challenge when it goes out on the internet. It's there for all to see.
What I love about Torabhaig in general, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, I've said it quite a few times to Kat and other tastings. We might even have said it on the Blether when we're talking about new distilleries, is that it doesn't feel like a new distillery. It doesn't. Yeah. I quite often forget about it when we're talking of new Scotch distilleries. We're talking Ardnamurchan and Lindores and Lochlee and these kind of guys. And I think the reason is, one, you've got a very, very good spirit. It tastes older than what it is. But the branding, the story, I think you've done it in such a class way that it feels like it's been around forever.
Yeah, and I think probably also because we haven't released a huge amount of whiskey. I think that's kind of the other thing.
Yeah, maybe.
So we've, I mean, we're about to release Expression number 4, which is our 5th whiskey, 4/5. It's a little bit. So for anybody who's not aware, chapter 4 of the Legacy series is this one, but chapter 2 got a batch strength version. So there have been 5 releases from Torabhaig, but 2 of them were the same whiskey, just at 46 and at 61.1%. So hence the slightly confusing. It's 4/5. But given that our first whiskey came out in 2021. And we're only on our 4th expression. I think that's probably part of the reason as well, because lots of other distilleries have released tons more than we have.
Yeah. Some have done that in a year, 4 or 5 in a year.
Yeah, easily. I think the other thing, when you look at the actual distillery itself, it looks like it's been there a long time, because we took that old farmsteading, that 200-year-old building, and converted it. And because it's a listed building, that meant we really couldn't change much about it. When you look at it, you assume it's old. I mean, the number of people who ask if it was an old distillery that we brought back to life, they assume it was a mothballed distillery that we reopened, because they're like, well, it's an old building, so it must be. That's the obvious conclusion.
You say, if you want to see old, look at the cats.
Yeah, exactly. What's left of it. So yeah, I think that's part of it. I think we did things traditionally, so we have a cooling pond. So again, when you look at it through the eyes of a whiskey nerd, you're like, oh, there's a cooling pond. That doesn't happen these days. People tend not to go for that. So those aspects of it probably make it seem a little bit older. Right. So I think there's lots of things about it. And as you say, the liquid. And this is the first time I've had 2017 in a while. I don't often. I mean, I've got a couple of bottles at home, but I don't often get to taste this. And for a 3 and a bit-year-old, it's
so good.
It drinks so well.
It's the epitome for me of a coastal island dram. It's just got enough peat, it's got enough salinity. got enough cask influence in those. For me, it tastes older than it is. It just has such a really, really well made.
I mean, I know that for Neil, it was a really important factor, being able to release that first whiskey all bourbon matured.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that's what he hoped to do, and probably had in the back of his mind a contingency if he wasn't happy with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's essentially unmasked. It's naked whiskey.
Yeah.
I mean, you take a 3-and-a-bit-year-old whiskey that's not quite ready, when you chuck it in an octave for 6 months, and suddenly you've got something that people love.
Yeah.
But you know, so
drop exclusive Hollywood.
So, but so for us, being able to do the in first fill bourbon, straight off the bat was super important.
So
we're going to raise a wee. Sorry,
No,
Kat,
go
I
on.
was going to say, raise a wee glass to Foodquig. Glengarry was one of his favourite distilleries. He was a YouTube friend of Donner Pass whiskey. So
Aw.
we'll get a wee in there for a.
That's lovely that Glengarry was one of his favourite whiskies.
We
Yeah,
do
I would
have
say-
Glengarry in the tasting room, but it's a way back there. So here's the Foodquig. Cheers.
Cheers.
Sorry, Kat, you were going to say.
Probably. I can't remember what it was now. Doesn't matter. It's gone. It'll come back to me. I can't remember. Whatever we were speaking about before. You know what, like naked whiskey. Oh yeah. Yeah. So like, what you're talking about your production style, you know, with your longer ferments and your clear wort and slow distillation. It sounds like you like really, really good basis for quite like a big kind of fruity style single malt. And unfortunately, I've not tried a lot of Torabhaig. I've only tried the one. What's one that's just got the name on it? The Gaelic name that I can't. I'm not going to try and do it. Like
Crochnamonia?
No, because I don't like
Or
cherry.
Old Brown?
Yes,
Old Brown?
that one.
So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the idea with the bourbon cask is that just so you can taste like that sort of like this kind of spirit forwardness of like the young dram, or is it more that it suits the bourbon profile better?
I think it's probably a bit of both, actually. Distillery character is really important to us. Neil, so everything we do goes back to Neil's vision. So if I go back to Neil's kind of start in the spirits industry of importing different spirits, the style of liquids that he was importing were very delicate, very elegant liquids. He's never been one for big, bold, punchy spirits. It's always been stuff which is elegant and delicate and layered and complex. So it made sense that that's the kind of whiskey that he would produce. So for us, the distillery character is we want that to come through. And so with Alt Glown, so with 2017 and with Alt Glown, I think it was an opportunity to really show off distillery character with those. And the Legacy series serves a couple of purposes. It's that journey. It lets people see the whiskey evolving, because unless you work for a distillery, you don't generally get to see the more or less the same whiskey at 3 and a bit, at 4, at 5, and 6. So that's part of it. But the other key behind it is that we want to really firmly establish our house style. So what we want is that by the time we release the 10-year-old, we want people to broadly know what to expect from us. So that's why distillery character is absolutely crucial. Now, so you've not tried the Crochnamonia. You're not a big fan of sherry casks.
I haven't. No, I'm not. I think maybe I did try at work one day. Did I, Mike, when you got it in?
You did. Because is it not like something like 1%, which sherry cask?
Just under 10.
Just under 10.
Just under 10.
Like a very.
And so that was the thing with that liquid. So to make that, Neil started with this. He started with the Alt Glown. The Alt Glown is about 70 to 80% first fill bourbon, 20 to 30% refill ex-bourbon cask. And so he started with a batch of that, and then he started, as he describes it, buggering about with some of the sherry matured liquid. So that was Oloroso matured and Pedro Jimenez matured. Now, all of our bottling and blending is done at our site down in Galashiels. I happened to be there the same day that Neil was there, and he had been working on the blend for that whiskey. So he gave me a taste of the PX that was going into it, and it was amazing. It was thick and unctuous and syrupy, and it would have been great on ice cream. It was that kind of whiskey. But I couldn't tell that it was definitely Torabhaig, because the PX had overtaken the distillery character.
Yeah.
And so that's why he used that so sparingly. So the overall sherry component is a little bit less than 10%. Of that, let's just call it 10% for sake of round numbers. Of that 10%, only about 3-ish is PX.
Right.
So it's like, a couple of drops in the bottle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's maybe where I was getting the 1% from. So
That's probably where you got that really so it was, and because what he wanted to take the Alt Glown and bring in fruitiness, richness, depth, but not lose spirit character.
Make it different enough from this, so it's a different expression, but not lose.
Yeah.
And I think what you've done with your range, it's what makes a successful distillery in my eyes. It's certainly, if you do go down selling tindies, Ardnamurchan have done it very well. Rassay have done it very well. Is have that kind of character that people expect, that you can vary slightly, but overall you've got this home style that people trust. So if they're buying it from a Little Brown Dog, a Gordon MacPhail, a Benny Brothers, they know what to expect.
Yeah.
And some distilleries haven't got that yet.
Yeah.
So when you're buying an indie, or you maybe would avoid an indie from them because you don't know what style it is. Is it a peat expression? Is it unpeated? Is it what kind of yeast is it? Is it new? So, and I think that's what I love a little bit about Torabhaig, as well as what makes a successful brand is consistency. That people and that builds trust, and that means this people recognize the spirit. Which is always important.
And I think so that is going back to the fact that we've not released much liquid. That's another reason why we haven't sold cask to indies, because I think if you do that early, there is the risk that somebody puts it in a weird cask, and it'll be interesting, and all of us whiskey nerds will love it, but it then muddies the water of what is your house style. So for us, taking the approach we did, we're I think certainly with whiskey enthusiasts, we're kind of there with the house style. I think whiskey enthusiasts who know our whiskey, they know what to expect from us.
Yeah.
So the next couple of expressions are really just kind of firming that up with them. But yeah, so Alt Glown, I think, as a whiskey that has been with us for a few years now, has been a really great, foundation for building that house style on, for getting people to know that house style. Because it's been around a little while, people have come to 2 and 3 and 4 festivals, in a row, several years in a row, and they've tasted this. And there's been something else there, but they've had this there.
Yeah.
And so, for me, for doing a tasting, one of the things which I find really fascinating to do, and we'll do this tomorrow night, is when you compare Alt Glown and Croch side by side, and knowing that Croch is more or less 90% the same whiskey as Alt Glown, and that it's something that it messes with people's heads a little bit, because they're like, you can see how one has evolved into the other. But then you're also going, how can such a small difference make such a big difference?
Yeah.
And that's why, so all of the liquid in these is all full maturation. So it's not, there's no finishes going on here.
married it.
Yeah. So it's casks. So it's first fill bourbon, refill bourbon, first fill Oloroso, first fill PX, all of which held their liquid for somewhere between 4 and 5 years. And by taking that approach, it allows Neil to really dial it in. That's how we end up with like 3%.
Yeah.
Because he talks about, again, this is one of the things I find really interesting when Neil talks about his blending process. Normally, when you hear about blenders, it's I got the glasses, got the line, all of the glasses, and of course everybody does. But Neil talks about the fact he actually does it by titration. So it's like 100 mils with 1 mil added, 2 mils, 3 mils, 4 mils, 5 mils, until he gets to the point. Now, everybody's going to be doing that because everybody talks about. We're all used to the idea of the blender working purely just off of the nose, and of course the nose is the key part of that. But you have to have that scientific approach, because otherwise, if you don't, then it all becomes a little bit vague and hard to reproduce.
And how do you upscale that?
Yeah,
you don't know the figures. Yeah.
So and of course, when you upscale it, there is the chance that. So one of the reasons why we say that it's a little bit less than 10%. I know the exact numbers, but we don't say them because if we do another bottling run, those might change very slightly.
Yeah.
And we would always rather be a little bit vague to begin with than find ourselves in a position where we know what we're saying is not accurate.
Yeah. I guess it's like why some distilleries have a non-age statement, and they'll say on average an 8-year-old, but it varies from batch to batch.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing with these, Old Glen and Croft are between 4 and 5 years old. Mm-hmm. So there's no age statement on there, but that's the age of the liquid.
Yeah.
And we're happy to tell
people don't know that because.
Yes. I mean, it's obvious.
but you look at something like geekery going back to 1797, it's not so obvious. So.
Yeah. But for us, we're very happy to tell you that. For some brands with a non-age statement, they won't even give you the ballpark.
Yeah.
And there's differing reasons for that. But, for us, we like to be as transparent as possible. If we could put on the bottle, this is between 4 and 5 years old, we probably would.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't attempt to, in case anybody from the SWA is watching. But, for us, the more transparent we can be, the better.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of our view of whiskey in general, is if you're proud of it, tell people about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what makes it really kind of interesting.
Are you seeing that now, given that there are so many new young distilleries with a core range or with a flagship? People are kind of, because the public, the guys at home watching tonight, they know that whiskey's 5 years old and no older. People aren't quite afraid to put on an age statement, say, you know what, this is 5 years old, we're proud of it. We've seen kind of Arndahole, we've seen, and it's not just you guys, you look at Ardbeg taking out the wee beastie at 5 years old. Yeah, quite confident in saying that.
Yeah, I think it's not something that we've talked about doing. Certainly not.
You can say it, but just
don't exactly. We can say it, we can't put it on the label. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we, as I say, in a tasting at a festival, we'll tell people all of that detail. I think it is a good thing that people are more accepting of the young age statements. And I think Ardbeg doing it really opened the door because it was a big established distillery. And I think bye Cat.
Mark, what did you say to Cat?
I think, because, Ardbeg, big established brand, and they drop a 5-year-old age statement. I think the whiskey enthusiasts have always been kind of fine with it and know that age statements are not the be all and end all, and high age statements are not the be all and end all. But I think that probably made some of the more casual whiskey drinkers a bit more accepting. One of the things I really love is Lochlee's age statements. The fact that they're doing one each year, so they did the 5, they've done the 6.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. It's a nice statement of this is how old we now are. I really like that. I think that's a really interesting approach. And I think it is becoming less of an issue for a lot of people. The broader whiskey drinking community, I think it's still something people get stuck on.
Yeah.
You know, we see it at festivals, we hear it at festivals. It happens all the time. We have people who come up and they say, "Give me your oldest whiskey," and that's the opening line.
They love it. You stick out a 5-year-old. Well, there you go.
Well, no, I feel like so until we released the Mossburn cask collabs, it was the Castle Canamas 12.
Okay.
So that was the oldest whiskey on the table. So we would, and it was always hilarious because you would pour it and they would taste it and go, "Oh, it's really great." So for me, it's, to put it in context, one of my, I avoid saying favorite whiskies, but I'm going to use that as a phrase just because it's the simplest. One of my favorite whiskies is Cold Sonic. It's a whiskey that I have on the shelf all the time. Yeah. Castle Canamas 12 is a good stand-in for me, because I can get it at staff price, so it makes a difference. So for me, it's in that
comes down to money.
It's in that kind of flavor profile. It's in that kind of ballpark flavor wise. It's big peat. It's lots of sherry. So people taste it. "Oh, that's great. It's really nice. We love that." It's, they throw a few tasting notes out. And they say, "Oh, so what is it?" And you say, "Oh, it's a 12-year-old blended malt." And they go, "Oh, it's okay." And you're like, 2 seconds ago you said it was really nice.
Yeah.
You mentioned blended malt, and suddenly it's okay.
Yeah.
And that is because, I think it's a problem we have. There's lots of problems of our own making in the industry.
It's almost like it's uncool to like.
Yeah.
Anything with the word blend. It's not a flavor thing. It's a status thing.
Yeah. So for a long time the industry was saying single malts are better, older is better, darker is better. All of these things, and the one that we come up against is not so much that the industry was promoting it, but that what people were used to was that heavy peat is medicinal.
Yeah.
So that's one that we come up against a lot, is that when people hear about heavily peated, they think Laphroaig, they think Lagavulin, they think Ardbeg, so they think medicinal.
Yeah.
And then
for a long time there was a lot of people who thought that was whiskey.
Yeah, well, yeah,
that's
absolutely
what was left in Dad's cabinet, because when they went to Nick and Jam, that's what they got. They got a mouthful of that and thought, "Well, that's what whiskey tastes like. I'm out of here."
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That happened for so many people. That was the thing that they tried first. And for your first dram, you get the odd unicorn who they try some Space Ides and find them dull, and you give them Laphroaig, and it opens their eyes. But those are fairly rare. So there's lots of these things that the industry has taught people intentionally or inadvertently over the years.
Yeah.
And we're all kind of trying to fight against that.
And I love Donna Patz has said, always interested in the nerdy details, clarified wort versus dirty wort, hot fast fermentation against cool slow fermentation, unique yeast strain, still size, all these kind of stuff really makes a difference. But it's cool knowing all that, but if you don't know what it does to the actual liquid at the end of the day, it's just words. But the people who want to know this, the people watching tonight, the people who are going to watch Roy in the show afterwards, we're a very, very small minority of people, and the whiskey drinkers, and people just don't want to know that. People will learn what they want to learn. If they've heard somewhere from probably their dad or a barman, drink single malt, it's better than blends, don't mix it, don't put ice in it. That's just what they believe. Well, somebody who I respect told me that, and that's what I'm sticking to. And it doesn't matter what anyone else does. The industry can bleat at it. We'll put it in whiskey magazines, we'll put it on Facebook, we'll talk about it in chat. These guys aren't reading whiskey magazines. They're not following whiskey pages on Facebook. They're not watching us tonight. So they just in their own little bubble. And I don't let it annoy me nearly as much as I used to. I'd be like, for God's sake, do what you want. And you'd be screaming at people. You're just like, you know what? If that's me, you'd like, I'm not going to tell you anything. And we kind of have to, as an industry, stop preaching quite so much to the wrong end, to if somebody walks in and he's like, oh, I want to buy a nice single or a nice whiskey. This is the one we get all the time. I want to buy a whiskey for my dad. Cool. Yeah, you come to the right place. We're a whiskey shop. Great. What kind of whiskey does you like? Well, it has to be a single malt. And it's like, well, that doesn't really narrow it down. But then you have to put on their head as well. They're just walking in the street. They're not even buying for themselves. Let's take a step back and say, cool, single malts. We've got a great range of single malts. Do you have any names that you recognise? You recognise Macallan, you recognise Glenfiddich. Start big and say, well, these are kind of, and it's how we as an industry welcome somebody who's new, rather than saying, fuck off with your single malt. Try a blend, or vice versa. We have to kind of put an arm around them and say, well, you're brand new in the door. In Caprol, you get it a lot at distilleries as a probably that first port of call that some people have ever had with whiskey. Walking in because it's on their tick list, to visit a distillery because it's in Scotland, or they've got on the wrong bus on a cruise and they're now on a distillery tour when they want to go and visit our castle or something, and they're like, how did I get here? But how do you kind of welcome these guys in and say, you're new to whiskey, how can I get you to taste it? Or you might, have you got plans for that? Or
it's my internet's being shit again. No, not so much. So like with us, like you'll know that we don't do like back-to-back tours. Like we do like quite a long kind of in-depth tour, like as our basic tour, because what we do is a bit different, like with the floor malting, with the direct firing. So I think we're finding that because like most of the feedback we're getting is that, oh, this is the first time I've actually really understood like how you make whiskey. And I think once people maybe understand it a bit more, sometimes it becomes less intimidating. A lot of people just associate whiskey with this strong, like astringent, kind of like harsh kind of liquid that they've maybe, as you were saying before, like tried in like their dad's whiskey cabinet or whatever. But once they've kind of seen like the sort of the different nuances and like skill and sort of technique that goes into making it, I think it kind of opens it up, especially like going to a distillery as well. Like, you've got that sensory aspect. So straight away, like once you've done the tour, whether it's psychological or not, you sit with that glass and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I can smell like the malt because I was in at the malting floor, and I can smell that lovely kind of apple notes you were talking about in Stillhouse. And again, that opens up and it kind of prepares you for it in a better way than, just handing somebody a glass in a bar and saying, yeah, try whiskey, you're in Scotland, you should just try it. So I think all those kind of stages help towards, at the end, they still might not like it. Like some people are just not going to like whiskey, just like some people like gin, like some people don't like wine. Like it's just, you're not going to change their mind, but at least maybe they've got a better understanding of like, of what actually whiskey is, as opposed to like them being told what they think whiskey is. It's a long answer to a question there, but
yeah, no, it's and they'll go away with some respect for whiskey as well, rather than it's just a drink. It's I guess maybe not every drink, but rums and Calvados and these kind of drinks, if you go and see it being made, you've got that more respect for it. Whereas probably, I don't know if there is vodka or gin distilleries. Some gin distilleries do tours and all that, but you very rarely get to see the actual spirit getting made. It's kind of bought in. So you lose a little bit of romance there.
Yeah, I think it's.
Oh, you go.
No, you go.
No, I was just saying, it's that thing as well. There's just been a lot of misinformation out there. So it's like you're always battling what people have been told about whiskey, or people are told how to drink whiskey, how to enjoy whiskey, or like, don't drink Lefroy, it tastes like TCP. So straight away you're like, oh yeah, you're right, it tastes like TCP. Like there's a lot of misinformation out there. So you are always battling preconceived ideas before people come in.
We talk about Lefroy a lot, but they love it. The fact that people think, you look at one of the recent campaigns where they got people to describe it, and it's all over the distillery now. Like, he's slapped in the face with a wet herring and stuff like that. Yeah, they absolutely love it.
I think that's a great marketing campaign, leaning into that.
Yeah.
I think that great move.
Yeah, 100%. You've got to own it. either. You can't beat them, so join them. I think my favorite one was, it's like being French kissed by a mermaid who smoked a cigar. I mean, like, sign me up for that anyway. But like, just Ariel, like jumping out on a rock, the big fat Cuban cigar, like, give me some tongue. I'm like there for that. But like, yeah, that's definitely a good one. That's a good one.
I feel like we're going back to Mike's original nickname, the Distillery Car.
Yeah. She loves a distillery by the sea.
I was at a distillery by the sea today. I was out over Arbickie today. That's such a pretty distillery. No French kissing mermaids there, but good company all the same. Lovely distillery.
Yeah, it is a cool site, and the view from it is amazing, and all the environmentally friendly stuff that they're doing with like their peas and their all of the different bits and pieces that they do is super cool.
I know, and I saw Kirsty walking through the distillery, and the person I was with, I was like, that's their master blender. But I probably said it loud enough that she was like, yes, I am.
I hope you ran over with your card and said, call me.
No, well, she was busy talking to somebody, so I didn't want to just be like, here's my card. But I'd love to get her on. I know she's very, very clever, and I love the fact that they're using like sort of rotational crops to make their gin and stuff. Just great. I mean, you're also as well. You're great, also, Stuart. You know, like we'll concentrate on you for now.
I don't. I mean, I think that is the nice thing about Blether. The whole point is it's a random chat. And yeah, but just going back to the helping new people into whiskey, it is very easy for us when we're whiskey nerds to forget that at some point we probably did think that older was better and darker was better and that single malt, all of those things. We probably all did have that thought at some point. And yeah, it takes time. Yeah, Juliet's comment, I tell people not to overthink whiskey, but to trust their smile. Yeah, that's a really nice.
Yeah, I like it. The bigger smile, the better the whiskey. Love it. Just going to say good night to Dave. Hopefully you're feeling better soon. He's not feeling too good for his early night. So good night, Dave. Cheers for joining us.
Night, Dave. There's so many horrible bugs going around. I was ill last week. Like there's some nasty stuff going around. Get better soon.
Yeah, I mean, he says he hasn't felt normal for weeks, but I've met Dave, and I don't think he's ever been normal. So yeah, hopefully the doctor can find something to sort you out. Jen was saying the best way to have it, Juliet. Always like doing blind tastings because it's much more about the taste and if you like it rather than if you should. Yeah, we did I can't remember if we talked about this last week about doing a blind tasting. Off the back of a comment somebody said. So we have a local venue we do tastings with every quarter. And the favourite one 2 quarters ago was the Glenburgie 25-year-old. Okay. And somebody had a comment, just kind of off the cuff, saying, I wonder if that would have been the favourite if we didn't know how old it was. So the next one we did a blind tasting. And we had some 18-year-old with some 3-year-old, and we put in a grain. And the favourites was much more balanced, very even before we announced what was the favourite. So it was really interesting, taking away that preconception.
Yeah. I've heard that from a few people with whiskey clubs that do that, and they do a real mix. So they'll stick in a standard blend, everything up to like a 300-400 quid bottle,
yeah,
and everything in between. And the high price points often don't do that well. But yeah, it's even when we know that those things shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, so even those of us who do this for a living, it's really hard not to be swayed by that.
100%.
So last night I was at the Oranmore Whisky Awards, and
did you win anything?
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, we made the shortlist for best Highland malt for Altlown and Crochnamonia.
Yeah.
But the award went to Glendronach for their Ode to the Dark.
Oh, yeah.
So no, unfortunately, we didn't win anything. But one of the things they do is they the bottles that are submitted for the awards, they have them on the bar for people to and it's a donation to the Ben for your drams. And one of the ones that went fastest, and this was before any of the awards were announced, was the Bunnahabhain 21. Because people were like, oh, it's a Bunnahabhain 21 for like a relatively small donation.
Yeah.
So it got hammered. Beautiful dram.
Yeah.
I was one of those people who went, oh, I'll have that.
Yeah.
And like my first dram of the evening. So we're all susceptible to it.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult not to.
When we were at the India Awards, Kat, the buzz around the room was, have you been to the Claxtons? They've got some banging old stuff in there.
Yeah, you couldn't get into their stand at all, just because everyone was like, as soon as that news started to spread, that they've got the old stuff. There was who else? Whether it was them and there's somebody else that had. Was it Finn Thompson had some? Or somebody else had like a really old bottle. Well, Russell had his really old bottle, like. But
yeah, Finn Thompson had his 50-year-old Invergordon, I think, out, and Bruce Backer at Drampool had some old stuff, and I think there's that wee guys in the middle. They had something like a 949 Glenlivet. I can't remember who that was.
You're just jealous because you missed it.
I heard it was great. I went away for 2 minutes to get a bottle of water, and then got collared by Dean Jones at Money David, yapping about him. Tasted some great whiskey. Turned around and the bottle was gone. I was like, yeah. Overrated.
I looked for you. I was like, because like you were just like a little ferret. 1 minute you were there, and the next minute you were gone. I was like, where the hell is he going again? But no, I was like a big ferret. You're like a big old ferret. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like if somebody handed me that glass, and not told me what was in it, which quite a few people seem to do, because that's why I always end up pissed at these things. But if nobody had told me what it was, I would have thought, yeah, that's lovely, but I wouldn't have guessed 1949 Glenlivet. I just would have. But as soon as he whispered that 1949, straight away you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. So yeah, you're right.
It was a custom whisper that did it, wasn't it?
It just sent a flurry down my spine.
It is that is one of my favorite things, or things I find most amusing at festivals, is when like another ambassador, someone like from another company, so not even somebody who you're working on the stand with, just walks up to you and just thrusts a glass at you, and you just take it and drink it, and it's like, in this day and age, we're just here, drink this, and you don't even ask what it is. You just take it and you drink it. It's such a bizarre thing. One of my colleagues actually was taking the mickey out of it. So Gordon Hughes.
Yeah.
So this was, I think it was last year at Whisky Show. So we have a girl called Claire Wilkins who is like a freelance BA for us. And so I first met her when I was at Tomatin, so I've known her a few years. So we get on really, really well. And both of us are obviously super nerdy. Mm-hmm. So both of us will wander back to the stand and just hand the glass. And yeah, Gordon was taking the piss out of us. He's like, you two are such BAs. We're just like, drink.
So if you're at a festival and all the great and the good of the ambassador world are out there, is there anyone that if they came up to you and thrust a glass in your face, you'd be like, no, I don't trust him? Bearing in mind a couple of them are watching tonight.
I don't think so. And certainly not for... If there was, it would be because they're a bit of a piss taker, and it would be something weird, or it would be something that's like not dangerous, but
no.
bad.
Yeah, I'm not talking about me in a glass.
I mean, to be honest, I would probably be the one person who would hand you something that tastes bad. Okay. Like I have a slight obsession with finding out what the worst thing someone has tasted recently.
Okay.
Because it's really easy to tell you what was great. So I had this from so and so and that from these guys, and it was great. Mm. But and I think this kind of comes back to what we've talked about. We all get the opportunity to taste so many great things. Actually, sometimes the things that stand out are the ones that were not great. And I mean, it doesn't have to be whiskey. So it's one of the things I find quite interesting, particularly so when I do trips to the distillery, quite often I'll have buyers for people who are buyers for like a small group, and they'll be the wine and spirits buyer. So quite often they'll come away with, it's either a wine or it's a fortified or it's a cognac or it's I think it's interesting because there are just so many good things out there.
Yeah.
That it's almost a sea of amazingness that sometimes there's interesting but bad. And I think it's almost like, I think most of us in the trade, if we're using interesting as a good description, we feel the need to qualify. It's interesting in a good way.
It's how you say that word.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Or, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. You can't fake that.
No,
You
absolutely
cannot
not.
fake the word interesting.
It's funny. I took a bottle with me to Skye when I was there with Bruce and Neil, and it was a bottle that I had bought, and I thought this would be interesting to try. I hadn't opened it till I got there. I opened it the night before, and I tasted it, and I was like, it's not what I was hoping for. So then we'd had dinner, and I poured them a dram, and I thought I'll give it a minute and see what they think of it. And so I gave it 5 minutes or so, and I went, it's a bit nothingy. And they went, oh, thank God you said it. The two of them, neither of them wanted to say it because like they knew I had bought the bottle.
Yeah.
I brought it knowing that we might not like it, and that's fine because it was something which I thought would be interesting from a technical perspective. It'd be interesting for us to see what that whiskey was like.
Yeah.
And so I'm not, I'll mix it with Coke. Like, it's not gonna go wrong, or I'll chuck it in some old fashions.
Good way of doing it.
But
we talk a lot out on the host the Whisky Ambassador course, and a part of that is customer connections and talking to them about. It kind of focuses on upselling or selling on or these kind of things, but it's also recommendation. How do you recommend a whiskey? And one of the most important things I think for somebody to know is what they don't like.
Yeah.
Far more than what they do like.
Yeah.
If somebody comes in and I only like 12-year-old sherry casks, and I give them a terrible example because I can't think of a peated 12-year-old sherry cask at the moment. But I say, oh, you might really like a Bowmore 15, kind of darkest. For example, don't like peat. Because, well, you didn't tell me you don't like peat.
Yeah.
So it's very important for people to know what you don't like as well.
I just decided to move on.
Cool. Yeah. You will have no protest from it. I actually was thinking, because we're talking about the weird and wonderful and different, if you would have snuck in the North British there as a grain. But no, we'll continue with the.
Yeah, working our way through the Torabhaig. So yeah, this is Crochnamonia or Knochnamonia or Knochnamoin. All of them are right, all of them are wrong.
Sounds a little bit like a Kylie Minogue.
Yeah. I mean, when I was first told it was Crochnamonia, I assumed it was the illness you get from wearing Crocs on Skye in the winter. Crochnamonia. Great for shit jokes.
The only reason I know that's not true because nobody wears Crocs on Skye.
Oh, I'm sure there are some people who wear Crocs on Skye. I am sure of it. No, I did a bunch of staff trainings last year, like back to back. I did like 3-4 days of staff training all over Skye. And every time I had a skier on the training session, I would pass them the bottle and ask them to say it before I did. Every single one of them said something different. Yeah. Some different combination of croch, knoch, knock, noch, and most of them it was monia rather than moin. On Islay, it's more likely to be Moyne. In Irish, it's Moyne, and Gaelic on Islay is more heavily influenced by Irish than it is Scots Gaelic. Elsewhere in the Hebrides, it's more likely to be Moyne. It means the same, it means peat. But yeah, the Knoch, Croch, Knock. We've gone with Croch Pneumonia, or at least Bruce and I have, because the two of us need to be saying the same thing. Basically, we picked one effectively, because there's not really a right or wrong.
So I used to live up in Sutherland, which has got the big flow country where all the peat land is. And the bit of land coming out of Tongue heading towards Durness, where I used to live, was called the Moyne. And the Moyne was literally just the flow country, the big open bit of peat. So up in the Northern Highlands, they would call it Moyne as well. So yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because we've also the Knock do just up over the hill here as well. It's Knock.
Yeah.
It's spelled as well as Knock.
Yeah.
It's just an A-N at the start. And then into and it's something we never really talk about is Gaelic has dialect too.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
Just say Gaelic is one language and everyone speaks the same. But no, there's
it's like this. So we say alt glown.
Yeah.
But then you have a bottler which has that word, and it's
Glen. Is it Glen?
It's either Glenmore or Glenmore.
Glenmore. Yeah.
But if you were going by our pronunciation, it would be Glownmore. So it's you're right. There is, I think
we'll blame Greg for that one.
Right. when it's a language like Gaelic, I think it's easy to forget that there is dialect to it. I think, and I think this is probably one of the challenges for the Gaelic College, which is just a few miles south of us. They are kind of the de facto authority on Gaelic, but so. With their dictionary, they have to pick a pronunciation because they can't go, it might be this, it might be this, it might be this, it might be this. So they have to pick one.
Yeah.
But with Croch, the dictionary says one thing and there's a video of somebody else pronouncing it slightly differently. And it's like, so it's, so obviously they acknowledge that there has to be this degree of regional variation. And it's interesting that in English, we just accept it. We just know that there is regional variation. But with Gaelic, we almost expect that there will be the version.
I wonder if the Welsh have the same. I don't know if anyone here is watching from Wales, if they have the same issues with the Welsh language. I imagine they would.
I would imagine they do. I mean, I think it's true of any language. I mean, if you learn French at school, you learn classroom French. You go to France, and I mean, I experienced this years ago. I had a French teacher for a while, so my French accent is pretty good. So the things I know how to say, I can say quite well.
Yeah,
I sound like I know what I'm saying, and then I very quickly run out of vocab and lose.
You don't say sentences; you just say the words that you know.
I've put that together in a sentence. The sentence sounds quite good. And they go, oh, you must be French. And then they just go, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whoa, those 5 words were, those were the 5 words that I know. So I quickly run out of vocab. But I remember I went somewhere, I was just buying a bottle of water. And I had practiced the sentence in my head. And it was, grammatically bang on. And the guy responded, still a sparkling. I'm like, what? And it's just because, we don't speak perfect English. None of us, we speak English imperfectly.
Yeah.
We drop letters, we're lazy. And it's the same with every language.
100%. So
especially in Aberdeenshire.
Aye, definitely.
We've managed to take Scottish and completely turn it its arse. But yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, you throw in a little bit of Doric in there, and it's just it is literally a foreign language.
It is.
It's mad.
Just going to say hello to Bob. He's dropped in a wee bit late. Sorry, he had a tasting of Nickmean tonight. Excellent. And he's going for the Lagavulin 13 fish in the glass tonight. So nearly on point tonight, yeah. With that peated dram. So well, welcome in, Bob. Good to see you. And Juliet is embracing your rant. Not a rant, was it? It was a.
No, I think Juliet was urging me to butcher some French.
Oh, right.
think she was.
Got you.
I suspect that's what that is.
Go on.
No, no, definitely not. You might be able to twist my arm next week, Juliet. I've got a tasting with Juliet next week.
Remember, when you say it, you have to trust her smile. And
Yes.
the bigger the smile, the worse the French.
Yeah. So, Crock-and-Onion. Evolution from the last one, but you can,
It's very different.
yeah.
It's
But you can also, you can smell the similarities, and I think you can smell and taste the flavors that have been built onto Old Glen.
it almost subdued the peak on
Yeah.
the nose, and it's replaced it with a kind of tobacco, kind of cigar leaf note rather than a smoke. It's like a raw cigar rather than a lit cigar for me. Just tempered it slightly, but yeah, that coastal element, that salinity is still there.
And the balance of peat of phenolic compounds has changed slightly. So with Old Glen, the guaiacols, so the ashy bonfire smoke, gunflint fireworks, those slightly exceed the creosoles. So
It's the creosoles that give you
the
that
medicinal,
medicinal.
the TCP, the burning tires, all of that.
Yeah.
That has with the Old Glen, that is slightly less, that's slightly lower than the guaiacols. But with Croch, that's slightly reversed. So the creosoles slightly exceed the guaiacols. And my guess is that is down to the fact that the sherry casks will have been toasted rather than charred.
Okay.
So you're not getting those same subtractive reactions that you would get from the char in a bourbon barrel.
Yeah. Is there also the tannins of a sherry? If it's European oak, will break down the phenols.
Yeah, so I mean, you're getting all sorts of different reactions.
Is it European oak sherry cask you're using, or is it American?
These will be, I'm pretty sure they're American oak, because they'll be seasoned casks. So they will almost certainly be American oak.
That's another thing that some people don't realise, that not all sherry is in European oak. There's a lot, if not, there'd be more in American oak now probably than European.
Certainly the sherry casks that we are using in the industry.
Yeah.
Because again, that's another one that a lot of people, it's one of those ones that you hear, and you'll hear it at the distillery cap. People saying, "Oh, I was told I should drink more sherry because it will help the whiskey industry." It's one that we hear all the time, and depending on the level of geekery, will impact how much you explain to them, the accuracy of that statement. But yeah, I think it surprises a lot of people when you explain to them about how seasoned casks came to being, and the fact that very few of the casks that we use in the industry are quote unquote real sherry casks.
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions about sherry casks, is that people just have this romantic idea that some old Spanish guy is rolling out of casks out of bodegas and shipping them over to Scotland, and a massive misconception. And I don't want to ruin that romance for them at all, but I'm like, no, it's just no, not anymore. Not anymore.
I mean, you can still say drink more sherry. I was going to say, if you drink more sherry and the bodegas start making more money off the sherry, then they might reduce the price of the casks. It's not going to happen, but
see, I quite like the
I mean, I don't think I know anybody that drinks sherry, to be honest. No, probably not.
I do.
You like your sherry?
Yeah.
I don't drink enough of it. I do like a sherry.
Yeah, sherry's nice. I think so. For me, I quite like the romance of the story of the genesis of those casks. The fact that they were transport casks and they got dumped on the pier in Glasgow and Edinburgh, and then somebody chucked some whiskey in it because they needed a vessel to stick whiskey in, not because they thought, oh, this will be good. Like here's a free vessel to stick this liquid in. I like that element of the story of that, and I think I don't think there's. I mean, a lot of distilleries will not talk about the fact it's a seasoned cask, and we do. We don't. It's another thing where we're really transparent about it. And I kind of get it why some don't talk about it, because it's like a lot of these things. Unless you are really comfortable with explaining how that came about, you kind of avoid
your confusion, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see it with doing the Whisky Ambassador. There'll be people who don't want to ask a certain question, or once they've been trained, they'll avoid talking about this thing because they know that will lead to that question, which leads to that question, and they can't answer that question.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common thing, is that people, they just this surface explanation, and you see it quite often that you see the surface explanation of how things work. And it's not wrong, but it's just not fully detailed.
Yeah.
And unless you're really ready to go into the detail of it, it's hard to go beyond that surface explanation.
But you are seeing guys and people on tastings who are really interested in that side of things, and they're the ones that will ask the questions.
Yeah.
So as an ambassador now, it must be so difficult compared to back in the day when you're like, drink my whiskey and buy it. Yeah, tastes great. And if you want an expensive one, here's an older one. There you go, try that. When it's now, you need to know like every detail, everything, because people will ask you if you're wrong. They're on the blower, like Google. They're like, well, you're talking shit. That's not right.
I mean, I part of me doesn't know what on earth ambassadors used to talk about. Like, so now, a good chunk of the tasting, we end up, we go into nerdy detail. There you go. They're waiting to ask me what size of bolts they use in the mash tun at Glengarry.
Over you.
Do you know what, Jeremy? See, before you come and visit, I'm going to go around the whole site with the engineer and find out every single detail. So I've got those answers for you, because I'll be ready for you. Just wait. I will be ready.
We did have a question on Glengarry, actually, Kat. I'm going to bring it back to you. The return of the floor malting at Glengarry is relatively recent. This is from Donner Pass. Is it 100% of the malt used, and how many years until a 12-year-old with this malt is ready?
Okay.
So it's dad in me wants to say 12 years, but I know.
So we went back to floor malting 2021. We are 25% floor to 75% commercial, but 25% is a massive percentage. Like Balvenie's about, let's call it an average 5%. So yeah, 25%. But we've done a couple of 100% floor, have full 100% productions. So and we're currently, we were on a silent season for like 3 weeks, and they carried on with the floor malt as well. So we're putting away some more floor malt so that we can do another 100% run as well. So I don't know what the plan for that is, whether it's going to be like an annual thing, whether we do like 100% every year, or whether it'll be like one off now and again. Who knows? In terms of when there'll be a 12-year release, we don't know. There'll be a rebrand brand of some sort for Glengarry at some point when the new spirit's ready, but obviously 2021, wasn't that long ago, so we've got to wait to see what the new spirit does in the cask. So it'll probably be more full maturations, and just giving it its due course of time before we see it released as a core range. So yeah, I can't answer the second part of that. It's a wait and see. But I was down at the blending lab yesterday at head office, so a lot of exciting things coming soon. So yeah, it's a good time to be into all things
Always
Glengarry.
exciting things coming from Glengarry.
There is actually. We are such an underrated, under the
Mostly from
radar.
indie bottlers, but you know.
Fuck off.
Did Glengarry stop direct firing and then go back to direct firing, or has it always been direct fired?
No, so we did stop. We were like one of the last ones to move away from it. So late 70s, we moved away from it. So when North Sea gas became more available, when it became more popular, we went, started utilising North Sea gas, went into indirect firing. And that's when the whole greenhouse project started, like when we were growing the tomatoes there, which we kind of became famous for. And then I think we kind of realised that, we were missing something. Direct firing just gives you just much more intensity. Like the spirit coming off the stills just now is absolutely insane. So we wanted to go back to it, but we wanted to make sure it was done the right way. So obviously we're trying to future-proof the distillery, make sure it's on a sustainability journey, which is quite a hard thing to do with a 200-odd-year-old distillery. So yeah, recently returned to direct firing, which is pretty cool because there's not many places doing it. Do you know, I don't even know an accurate number of how many people are direct firing. People ask me this, and I don't know. Like, I know we do it. I know Glenfarclas do it. I know some of the newer distilleries are setting out with it in mind, like Kythe, Jeremy, help me out. There's another one that's doing it. But it must be a handful. Like, it can't be like 4 or 5 or 6 of them. Like, not that many.
Yeah, there's very, very few. Far fewer direct firing than are malting their own barley, regardless of proportion. That's a really small number.
Yeah, Dunphail, that's right, Juliet. Yes, Dunphail, that's what I was thinking of. Oh, and Moffat.
Yeah, and they're also doing all of their own malt.
Little Springbank kind of operation going on there.
Yeah, open wash backs. It's cool.
Yeah,
it is a really cool distillery. Kat, can I go back to the tomato thing?
Oh,
what was the crack with the tomatoes? Yeah, and actually, this will be relevant for this. Sorry, Kat.
No, you're fine. Yeah, so tomatoes, not like when do you put the tomatoes in at tomatin. Generally, we had. So yeah, we went into indirect firing, but we're producing way too much heat. So it's similar to the Bemore story with they put the excess heat into the swimming pool. Yeah. So we were producing excess heat during distillation. So they decided to pump that into greenhouses that they had erected on site. And then the CO2 from fermentation, they were pumping into greenhouses as well. So they were growing like loads and loads of tomatoes and aubergines, courgettes, like salad, vegetables, cut flowers. Like if you grow up in Aberdeenshire, all you eat is like tatties and neeps. Like, like going to get an aubergine from down the road is not that common. So like we were like the only distillery kind of doing that. So you're talking like 1970s when like nobody's really thinking about sustainability. Like people didn't even wear seatbelts in their cars, let alone think about sustainability. So like it was kind of like the scene like really cutting edge and like the future of sort of energy use in distilleries. And it was like presented all around the world. It was like it went out to the World Fair in like Tennessee or somewhere, and like it was like a big deal. It was on Tomorrow's World, and like it was but it's what a lot of people associate Glengarry with is tomatoes. We just became famous for growing tomatoes.
There's a story that's why they stopped it, is because the distillery was more famous for the tomatoes than the whiskey.
No, it's more the fact that it was requiring too much energy. So because it becomes so successful, it was kind of taking over a little bit, and it was requiring like just keeping everything running hot all the time. So it was just becoming not practical. So yeah, it kind of disbanded. And then we kind of settled into like the new technology a little bit as well. So we weren't really producing too much heat energy, but we were doing it on purpose just to try and keep going with the with the greenhouses, so they
Okay.
decided to stop. But then there's just like there's no like nothing left of it. There's no greenhouses or anything. You can't even see where they were.
No.
So the reason I asked that is because I used to get, that was a question that came up at Tomatin a lot. People would say, "Oh, did you guys used to grow tomatoes?" And I wasn't aware of Glengeary doing that. So
Too young.
I think we all just kind of went, maybe, because like it's one of those ones where you're like, well,
I think the name was like,
yeah, and I think the name was too close to Tomatin for tomato, and then they'd heard the story about somebody growing tomatoes, so that was why they asked, and that's why this dram is relevant. So this is a Murray McDavid Juniper Hill, which is what Tomatin means. Tomatin means hill of juniper. So this is a relevant.
Nothing to do with tomatoes at all.
Yeah, no, nothing at all to do with tomatoes. But interestingly, Tomatin did do something with their heat. Tomatin had a fish farm.
Yeah, I was going to say it's fish.
So Tomatin had so there's a building at Tomatin which is still referred to as the fish farm.
Yeah, the eels.
Yeah, they had eels. So it's now the disgorging shed, but it's still referred to as the fish farm. So yeah, it was a pretty common thing for them to use the heat to to do other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, people assume that Tomatin grew tomatoes because the name.
Yeah. Do you know, I'd never made that connection before because I've heard that story of people getting confused about tomatoes. But you're probably right. People probably knew that there was a distillery that grew tomatoes and then just made that connection of, oh, it'll be that Tomatin distillery.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a case of crossed wires. That's funny.
Does anyone know what the Gaelic for tomato is?
Is it a Gaelic for tomato? It's not like Scotland's been famous for a famous tomato growing country.
I mean, Gaelic has got to a point now where it doesn't make up new words for things. It's just, that's why when you hear the news, it'll be like go to Gaelic words and then PlayStation and carry on with the Gaelic. It just doesn't know. I just want to touch on Reb Mordecai is putting in some interesting facts on the sherry. He oversaw a project to do with kosher sherry cask project, which is quite interesting. He knows a thing or two about the whole process, but seasoning sherry casks. Seasoned sherry might be young, but it's licensed by El Consejo Regulador as genuine sherry. I'm butchering that, by the way. So after seasoning, the cask is emptied of the seasoning sherry, quality checked, then some 5 litres of quality sherry poured in for transport. Yeah, so that's to keep the wood from drying out, isn't it? It's to keep it wet.
And then, of course, when those casks reach Scotland, they are rinsed.
100%.
And then emptied, rinsed, and then filled with.
And it wrung dry. Yeah. Each stave is meticulously wrung dry by the cooper to make sure that there's no sherry left in that cask when the whiskey goes in.
I have just seen Mark Watt's comment of people only ever remember the tomatoes. I think you'll find that actually it's the whiskey that people are remembering mainly about Glengeary, not the tomatoes. Thank you very much.
Not if you're a yokel.
I have found the Gaelic for tomato. Okay. It is tomato.
It is
tomato. I think it'll have a slightly different accent. It's not tomato, it's tomato.
Yeah. If you're just beat you to it.
Reb, no. No, not possible. Not possible.
Yeah.
We've I can't remember what release it was. There was something recently, and we did make a point of saying in our press release that we have rinsed, because we genuinely do rinse our casks. So we do make a point of saying that we rinse our casks, because we do.
Okay. I mean, again,
Reb, I suspect my sarcasm is not coming through.
Oh, sorry, Mark, injustice there. He meant that people don't talk about the aubergines. You're right. Nobody remembers the aubergines.
They don't. Yeah.
Nobody had an aubergine emoji back then, so that's probably why. So I was doing a tour for a couple of Canadian guys.
You listen to yourself. I think you realise what you're saying when things come out.
Honestly, like there's just no filter up there. So I was doing a tour for the guy that owns, I can't remember what distillery it is in Canada. It'll come back to me. Really, really nice guy. But he said that aubergines are the catfish of the vegetable world because they lure you in with like their squidgy black sexiness and then you eat it and they're disgusting. So he's like, oh yeah, aubergines are the catfish of the vegetable world. And I just can't
Did he use those words?
No, I might have elaborated on that story, but he called it catfish.
Squidgy black sexiness. That was the exact phrase.
What they are though.
That's going on a t-shirt, Cat. You can't stop that one.
I think maybe you need to like clip some of these little bits and stick them on TikTok. Just so that they become sounds.
It'll just be the cat show.
Yeah. I can imagine something like that going viral. People using that be like the Hawk Tour girl. The squidgy black sexiness.
Like, if you take it out of context, it sounds weird, but if you listen to that whole conversation, you would get what I meant. Because, like, if you're in Tesco and you see an aubergine, you just want to touch it. Like, I know we all do. We've all been there, right? The vegetable, right? We know the one I'm talking about. I'm not even drinking. Like, this is just... So, catfish of the vegetable world. There you go. So maybe people should
Tomatin didn't ever grow tomatoes. Glengarry grew tomatoes. Tomatin grew eels.
They didn't grow eel. They bred them. Grow eel. You pick them up a tree.
No, that's fair. Yeah, bread is more accurate. Yes, you're right. Bread is the word I was searching for there. Not growing eels.
No.
Any other examples? Do we have any other examples of distilleries branching out into non-alcohol or non-liquid?
That's a really good question. So Glengarry used to have pigs as well years ago, but I think maybe a lot of distilleries kept like animals because a lot of them were like farm.
Yeah, they would have been because they would have been farm based.
Yeah.
We used to have goats.
You did. You named them as well, didn't you?
Yep, one of them was called Goatee.
Yeah,
Nice.
Very original name.
Yeah, it's the same marketing team that came up with it.
So there was Goatee and Goatee's other half. Goatee's other half died.
Go to.
So we replaced Goatee's other half with a new goat, but the new goat beat up Goatee. So Goatee's new missus was like,
Go 3.
This is stretching it out. So then we got rid of both goats because the new goat beat up the old goat.
You told me that story before, actually.
Then we had chickens. And the chickens all were eaten. Not by us, not intentionally.
Not by the goats.
No, not by the goats.
Who ate the chickens?
It's just, we think probably either an otter or
so natural selection.
No, it wasn't somebody sneaking in at night and nicking the chicken. No, it was a predator of some description.
Oh, there's a few places that have got chickens. So Jeremy says Glenugie had cows and chickens, and Glenallachie had ducks, included in the sale.
There's
included
a
in the
number,
sale.
like 8 ducks or something. When they bought the distillery, they bought the ducks as well.
Oh, right. Sorry, I think you got like a duck with a bottle. I was like, I do not remember that. I would have been there for that. Oh, what? I'm mixing up my story. I was going to say, does Turmore not have ducks? But no, they hide rubber ducks in the warehouse, wasn't it? Oh, you were there for that, Blether, Mike. That was when we had Polly on.
Yeah, I watched back on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have this tradition of hiding rubber ducks around about the distillery. I can't remember why though. Maybe they used to have ducks there because they had that pretty pond out the front with all the topiary, didn't they? So maybe there was ducks there.
Yeah, they do now I wonder, so they're doing a treasure hunty type tour as part of Spirit of Space Night. So I'm wondering if that involves rubber ducks.
Okay. That makes
It could
sense.
be, because they've got an Instagram page for the rubber ducks, I think. And it's like a sort of, yeah. So I think I started following it off the back of speaking to.
Yeah, I need to find that now.
Yeah, that's cool. So Juliet had said 20 ducks were part of the inventory in 1989 at £1.
That's amazing. I love that.
Reb is saying that Glencadam has ducks as well. Glencadam also had 2 wooden big dogs. When I went to visit, it was closed, and we tried to find a way in, and then these 2 big dogs came out, and we're like, you know what, we're quite happy on this side of the fence. We're going to walk around this stuff.
Well, Gordon at Knockdo, he's got like, how many dogs has Gordon got? Like 25,000. Yeah, he's got loads of dogs. Yeah, so there's a few places that have animals.
When I worked at so Mark was there, when I worked at the Craigellachie Hotel, we had Glenallachie duck on the menu. I don't believe they were actually from Glenallachie. But then Juliet says that when Campbell Distillers got the keys, there were only 17 left. So I think Craigellachie were nicking Glenallachie ducks.
It does sound like it.
Yeah.
£3 lost.
Oh, and the tragic loss of life also. I mean,
Sorry?
I was saying the tragic, £3 lost, but also the tragic loss of duck life. I also made Dave Broom chase a duck around about, no, not a duck, chase a chicken around about Glengarry. Don't know where that chicken came from. True story.
I can see Dave being up for chasing a chicken randomly. That it's, Whiskey people do seem to have a tendency to enjoy randomness.
It was very random. I was so excited about meeting him, and then I literally turned up thinking, "Oh my god, I'm gonna meet Dave Broom. Today's the day." And there he was, just chasing a cockerel around about the car park. I was like, "Not what I expected, but all right."
And it was it.
Yeah, the story's already getting embellished.
Yeah,
chicken 2 minutes ago.
I know, now it's a cockerel.
It was a cockerel, but I was giving a generic term for all you non-farmers out there, just in case.
That would have confused people. I don't think they would have known what a cockerel was, Kat. I'm glad you simplified it. Was it not Glengarry where
a cockerel, but there wasn't an emoji for a cockerel?
Yeah, okay, that's the problem. She could use the eggplant emoji. Was it not Glengarry where that video of Christopher Coates was filmed?
Yes.
Where he had the over-enthusiastic sampling.
Yes, because it's me in the video.
I couldn't remember. I had a feeling it might have been.
Yes, yeah. Because it went massive. It's like when he so when he put it up on his Instagram, I didn't think anything of it, and then he sent me a message a couple weeks later saying, "Oh, just checking in, everything's all right," with the video and that. And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, right, because you maybe didn't realize it's gone viral." And at that stage, it was 2 million views, and I got up to 4 million views or whatever. And I thought that does kind of explain my DMs a little bit, to be honest. But but it was insane, how it just blew up. It was absolutely mental, and it was just so funny. I love Christopher Coates. I just think he is one of the best people in the whiskey industry. I've got so much time for him.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was just absolutely hilarious, but we had no idea it was just going to end up. I've got the bottle behind me. That one, the brown. I was going to say the brown one. Everything Glengarry's brown, but wait, wrong side. That one. That's
that one. No, that one. No.
That's why I'm not a weather girl. That and a few other reasons. So that's the one that went viral.
Yeah,
the root, was it?
So I called it. I called it the what did I call it? Cote Christopher de Coates, but or something. But it's just it's a Chateau Orange cask. Good though.
Because we had Millie Milliken at the distillery not long after, and we were doing sampling from casks, and I went, "Have you seen the video?" And she went, "I was there." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So you didn't need to see the video; you saw it live.
No, she was the one that filmed it.
Okay. I couldn't. As I was telling that story, I was like, "Did she say she filmed it?" And I couldn't remember if that was what she had said or not. Yeah.
So no, it was funny. It was a good moment. Then he came back to redo it to be when, because he took the spit out of the cask before it was launched, and then when we launched it, he came back to kind of officially launch the cask, and we kind of did a little follow-in video, which was really cool. But yeah, can't beat a bit of free publicity.
Talk about a bit of a tangent. Dave Muir's just comment. He thinks that you remind him of a darts player. I'm thinking it must be Peter Wright. Are you a darts fan?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm built like a lot of darts players. I'll give you that.
I was thinking the hair, because Peter Wright's
okay.
the mohawk.
Is he a mohawk? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I have never been a professional dartist. We'll go with dartist.
Dartist.
Anytime I have attempted darts, I usually cause some damage to the ceiling. I have a terrible hand-eye coordination, so no. Dutch Jura, I think that is Glengoyne that had the geese guarding the buildings, because
I think he must, because he used to live there. So Dumbarton.
Oh, okay.
Because Glengoyne means Valley of the Geese, isn't it?
Yeah.
And unique, Glengoyne geese are unique in that they have leaves, not feathers.
Okay.
I thought we were going to skirt over Glengoyne without you mentioning that story. I thought,
they have leaves. No, you're going to have to explain this now.
One of our favourite Blether stories. I'll let Kat explain it.
Oh, okay. Who were we speaking to? I can't remember who we were talking to. Who were we telling the story to? It doesn't matter.
I tell as many people as I can, Kat. I'm not going to lie.
So that day, I had been at a travel and tourism conference, and it's like one of those days when you're just, you know what, like when you're just talking all day, and it's absolutely exhausting, and your brain just kind of goes into autopilot. So like at the end of the day, I decided to go and see who else was there at the conference, and I found somebody there from Glengoyne. So I got chatting to her. I was like, I love because I love a box and a bottle. I said, I love your packaging. I was like, it's so beautiful. I love all the goose leaves all over the box. And she kind of went, wait, do you mean feathers? I'm like, yes. So yeah, I just felt like such an absolute dick. So then of course I told Mike live on this, and it just became like another cat's like brain fart moment.
Yeah, I get that. My wife has a lot of those, and I'm trying to think of one right now, and now that I'm trying to, I can't. I'm failing. But yeah, she has a tendency to do that kind of thing.
I bet we all do. We just tend to forget the ones that we do.
Yeah.
We remember the ones that the other halves.
Yeah.
The ones that are forever immortalized on the Blether.
Absolutely.
See, Reb, I kind of assumed that was how Kat got her nickname. I assumed it was to do with the distillery cats, that you became Distillery Cat. I kind of thought it was a play on that.
So did I. Like, I thought Mike had just come up with a really clever name. I was like, oh yeah, why have I never thought of that before? Of course, I'm the Distillery Cat. But no, he just made a joke that so to give you some context, he was doing his Whisky Academy, and the group that he had seen me at the shop, and then they'd seen me do their tour to Glengarry, and then I'd done their tour to Ardmore, and like they were like, oh my god, you're the only tour guide in Scotland. And I thought Mike had said, oh yeah, she's a Distillery Cat. And I was like, love that. And I saw Mike looking at me going, all right. But no, he said, she's the Distillery.
You know, if you call yourself the Distillery Tart on Instagram, you'd have way more followers.
Well, yes, but my DMs are probably a lot weirder than they currently are. So.
Yeah. I could imagine.
Yeah, so no, and I couldn't believe Distillery Cat wasn't taken. So I looked it up, and I was like, So there's some accounts out there following Distillery Cats, like the Lindor's Abbey have got their 2 cats, Vesper and St. John. What's it called? John Core. And then there's another one. There's another account.
Does the Tyree Cat not got one?
Oh, I don't know if I've got an account. Maybe I'll have to have a look. So yeah. So I was like, well, I'm having that and rebranding. So, and you can see I've gone to new heights of success off the back of it.
But yeah, I don't think having geese as guard dogs is strange. I think it's because the noise they make is mental, and it would scare anyone off. So that's Stewart. I don't think it's strange. I think they take less looking after than dogs as well. You don't have to walk them or feed them. They just kind of get on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine they're just themselves out.
Yeah.
They're quite loyal though, aren't they? Like people will have like geese in with like poultry to protect it because they'll chase away like baddies.
Whatever. Baddies.
Yeah.
Darth Vader gets chased away.
See, I'm just beating up a fox.
But then they flock, don't they?
They're
territorial.
Leaves flying everywhere.
Yeah. So, like autumn. So, Mark, I was going to ask this question, not about geese, but do you know how everyone says, "Oh, don't go near a swan; it'll break your arm. A swan can break your arm." Has anyone ever met somebody who's had their arm broken by a swan?
No, not yet.
No.
I've never challenged a swan for an arm wrestle.
But I think Mark has an underlying story here. He's asked, have you ever had a fight with a goose? And I really hope that Mark has, and he's a way to elaborate.
Came off the better for it, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've taken a goose.
Yeah. Mark's on, is it next week? Mark's on a couple of weeks?
It's not next. Yeah, it's not next week. I think because I've left my diary out in my car. I think we've got Unkiltered on Luke from.
Oh, awesome.
I think that's who.
Jeremy, are you saying the swan thing is an urban myth, or the fact that Mark had a fight with a goose is an urban myth? I feel like that would be like the best, like if there was a global urban myth that Mark had a fight with a goose. That would be incredible.
That would be.
The label sometimes. That's the next boutique label.
Yeah, Mark getting chased by a goose.
That's a good question, actually. If you could influence, like or if you could guess what boutique would have as a label for you, because like they've done one for like a couple of brand ambassadors, haven't they? Like I think Mark Thompson featured on a boutique bottle and stuff. Mm-hmm. What would they put on? What would they put on for you? Like what would they associate with you? Do you think?
I think it would be a massively caricaturized well no, it's not quite. My friends call it the ice gem. Because it is if I move kind of out the light a little bit, it is more ice gem because it's curved and then so yeah, I think probably a bunch of ice gems actually.
Okay. Do you have to style that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I don't get this volume without any styling. This requires a hairdryer and everything. And it's mainly to hide the helicopter landing spot at the back. That's the main purpose of it.
I'm gonna have for that. Yeah. Far less effort, less moose.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw you without a hat, I was like, yeah, I'd never seen you without a hat, and that completely confused me.
Oh yeah, that would be yours, Mike. If you were a boutique bottle, it would be a flat cap. I think that's your calling card. So yeah, ice gems, flat caps.
Yeah, and yours would just be like a plume of hair.
like they would just like roll the bottle in like the hair on the bottom of a barber shop, and that would be my bottle.
And when you get like 20 minutes in, the hair automatically like ties around the back.
Yes, yeah. Well, I tied mine up because I realized my hair was taking up way too much of this little square window that I'm looking at. So, so Mark, Kate and I have been on one already. Was Fairly Tame, just us and Spoons in. So you've been in a
boutique level. I was going to say I thought they'd been on.
That's cool. Oh, awesome.
Spoons as in the pub, or spoons as in the thing to dig food with?
I'm guessing it was a teaspoon Campbelltown blend, was it?
Ah, okay.
That makes sense. That's very cool. Yeah, because whenever they release a Glengarry, they usually put tomatoes on it. So it's always like that sort of nod back to the Glengarry.
Because when they did a tomatin, they did a ton of tomatoes on it.
Did they?
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Not an eel. I know. I don't think I'd buy it if it had an eel on it.
No eels. Spoons
Yes.
as in teaspoon. So we just poured the new one.
This is, yeah. So this is the brand new Sound of Sleat, which is coming. So I learned that Sound of Sleat isn't sound as in the noise, it's sound from Norwegian sund, which means to swim. And if a body of water is a sound, it means it was swimmable from place to place.
I didn't know that.
So there you go.
I am using that factoid.
So there you go.
I really like that.
No way. The Vikings are hardcore. Have you ever seen the Sound of Judah? Like, there's no way you're swimming across that. That's insane.
They were Vikings.
Yeah.
I mean, it might just be not necessarily that they actually thought that anybody did swim it. Maybe they just were like, well, that's not very far. So in theory, one could swim that.
Yeah, that's maybe more of it, actually. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's an interesting fact.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, so yeah, named after the supposedly swimmable body of water next to the distillery. That would be.
I mean, just don't try it. Disclaimer.
We have had guests who have gone for a swim. In the Sound of Sleat. We've had a couple of times where people have been like, they've been coming up and like, oh, can we go swimming? And we have to go down the line of, if you choose to go swimming, you choose to go swimming.
Yeah.
We're not encouraging swimming because we're not set up to deal with wild swimming. Like we do not have the requisite.
The rescue geese.
Yeah, the rescue geese. The rescue goatee. So this is chapter 4. And this whiskey is mostly matured in ex-bourbon barrels, a combination of first fill and refill. And about 20-25% of it is matured in heavily charred virgin American oak.
Okay.
So what we've got is quite a lot of vanillas, caramels, toffees, all of that kind of style of flavor coming in. The peat is a little bit more subdued, so it's receded further.
Mm-hmm.
So the residual phenols in this have dropped down to, I haven't got that fixed in my head yet, 14.5. So it started with 80 ppm, it's down at 14.5, whereas Croch started at 78 and ended up down at about 19. So we have lost a little bit more phenol, and my guess would be it's down to that char, which has had more subtractive reaction.
It's more like the oak glau than the Croch. Almost going right back to the 17, but more developed.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. It is back to the style of the 17, but it is more complex. It's a more mature version of it. We think it's one of if not the most delicate of the whiskies that we've released.
It's like a salt caramel kind of nose to it.
And incredibly layered. So I've only had a couple of drams from this, of this.
Not tonight.
Yeah. Not tonight. But yeah, I've not had much of this.
It
So
sounds
that's why I'm
gorgeous.
paying a lot more attention to the nose.
Have you got this in the shop, Mike?
We have it launches tomorrow. We'll be open at 10 o'clock. Stewart will be in from 12 with some pours. So if you want to pop in,
I will. I'll come over and say hello because I'm heading over to work tomorrow afternoon. So I'll come via the shop and come and say hello.
Aye, please do. So yeah, it's embargoed until tomorrow. So tomorrow is the UK launch.
So if you're watching tonight, don't tell anyone.
Yeah, keep it quiet.
It's fine. No one's
Yeah,
watching.
don't get them live tonight.
That's so good.
It's great, isn't it?
I want to say it's my favourite of the four. I would say it's probably only picked by the Oakland batch strength.
The Oakland batch strength is a common favourite for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's funny. So last week, I've had a couple of distillery trips recently with that I've taken this to, and the common question is which of the Torabhaigs is your favourite, and my answer has always been up till now it's been the batch strength. I'm now torn because it's
so much softer than the other 346%ers.
Yeah.
There's not any. It's maybe because it's the fourth.
Yeah.
I'd have to taste it again in isolation, but it feels you don't get any kind of burn. There's a dryness, but it's soft. There's more caramel. There's more salt, like that salted caramel. Maybe it's a very salt peat.
Yeah,
like a day after peat rather than there and now.
One of the notes quite a lot of us got was popcorn.
See, now I'm going to smell popcorn.
Yeah, I know that's the problem with when you throw out the tasting notes. It's the power of suggestion.
Sorry, Kat, we're just.
It's fine. It's fine.
We can jump in. Rev has asked a question. Changing the subject, what's your opinion of the band Dalrye Milk 16-year-old? It was always going to happen, wasn't it? It was never going to be allowed to stick around for long. I think Dairy Milk would have pretty much put a stop to it before the SWA did if they kind of turned a blind eye. I think they got away with it for as long as they did because they opened it on April Fools.
Yeah.
And every governing body thought they're not actually doing that. That's an April Fool, haha. And then when it started arriving and people started taking photos of it and posting it, they're like, hold on, what? This is actually a real life. So I think they were very, very clever. A little bit like last year, was it the Campbelltown soup from North Star came out and nobody believed it was real, and then it started arriving and so, oh, this is pretty cool. I think it's fun. I think it's I haven't tasted it. I don't know what the flavor's like or anything. I've heard mixed reports. Personally, if we can't have fun, then we're kind of losing something. It would have been banned. Well, it was banned, wasn't it? But they kind of did the whole. I think Glen Murray did something similar with their cider cask. Basically came out and said, "We're not allowed to do this again. So if you want one, buy it now." It was a great way. It was a great way of getting sales in.
I did see one of the posts from. I don't know if it was through Atom or Mom, or if it was Sam himself that posted it, saying that Cadbury did take it in good fun. Did they? I mean, obviously they sent a cease and desist, but I think the cease and desist was like, yeah, okay, you've had your fun now. We like it, but yeah, quit it. Yeah. So which I like, because I mean it's I get that it's infringing on their brand, but it's not going to hurt their brand.
No. Get people talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, I heard the same thing, that they were actually pretty genuine about it and said, yeah, okay, good one, guys, but can you not do it anymore, please? I missed the whole thing. I just thought it was an April Fool's, and then I kind of missed the whole kind of like reveal of like it was, and I just started seeing people reviewing it. I was like, oh wait, like that was real. And then I kind of missed the whole boat by then, to be honest. But yeah, it is a bit of fun, isn't it? Cool label.
Cool label.
I don't know. Yeah. That could be, you know, it's brand protection as well, a little bit, isn't it? You know, I think with a company like Cadbury's, you know, they're making stuff that's advertised for children, you know, like sweets and stuff. Like, okay, they're not directly advertising at children because you're not allowed to really, but like, I guess why they would be a little bit, you know, we don't want to be associated with alcohol. I do kind of get that kind of vibe, but I think it was all done well. Like, nobody made a fuss or anything. Like, it was just, a wee moment of fun. But like, I wouldn't have seen that post and thought, I'm going to go and see if I can buy that. I genuinely thought it was just an April Fool. Like, how many people?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that was the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was intentionally timed to make people think it was, which is a good way to do it.
100%.
I did like Lefroy's April Fool of go and sleep in a barrel.
Sleep in a barrel. And then we had to put up a post saying, thanks guys, I really love your enthusiasm, but you can't come and sleep in a barrel.
Wasn't actually true.
I love that people are
Tomatins was kind of similar. Tomatin photoshopped a bunch of beds into warehouse.
It's a warehouse, yeah.
I saw that one too, actually. That was really funny.
And I was fooled by it to begin with. It was only when I noticed the date. I hadn't noticed it was the 1st of April that day. And something, I then scrolled on and saw something else, and I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Oh,
yeah, not good. You hadn't already signed the form and filled it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Paid your money.
Click the link. And they're like, sorry guys, it's only the casks that sleep in there. Because I mean, they've done. There's bookshops that have done that kind of thing. People staying over in a bookshop.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, it's not as ridiculously far-fetched as it seems. I would imagine HMRC might have something to say about you having people kipping in a warehouse.
I wouldn't like to be the brand ambassador having to make sure. Right, guys, I'm going to sleep now. Please don't get up. Please.
Yeah, or having to take somebody like half a mile to the nearest toilet. None of them have blues handy. Yeah.
You would definitely get to know your fan base better if you had to spend the night spooning them, wouldn't you? Like, it's
the ultimate experience with a brand ambassador.
Spoon them with the VA.
Forget the VA. Yeah, forget private tasting.
So maybe your boutique bottling would have spoons on it as well, but for a very, very different reason.
Yeah. And actually, so interestingly, or maybe not interestingly, and actually, this is I can make our site manager have more kittens about this idea. And so our warehouse is set up so that we can do tastings in it. So we've set it up with so when you go in, the first 3-4 meters are unbonded, and then we have a fence, and the bond is beyond that. So that allows us to do the tastings in the front half. And have glasses and bottles and stuff that's not in the duty suspended area.
So it must be similar to your warehouse, Kat, where you've got that.
Yeah. So actually, in theory, putting some camp beds in that front part would not cause any issues with HMRC. Because I mean that would be the problem if you were in the actual warehouse and people could get up in the middle of the night and just
have a wonder.
And just pull some bungs.
Do you remember when we opened on New Year's Day to do a first footing in the warehouse, Mike?
I do.
That was good fun. We opened up the 2009 sherry cask. You opened up the 2009 sherry cask.
I did, yeah. First cask of the 2020.
Yeah.
I reckon it was the first cask in Scotland. It was 2020, wasn't it? Yeah.
Do you know, it might very well have been. We should have maybe thought about that more, like when we did it, because, like, yeah.
No, you're quite. Because if you thought about it more, then I wouldn't have got to do it. You would have got somebody like fancy, like the Prince of Wales or somebody coming to.
I mean, Ron Welsh, the master blender, was there, and I handed you the. I can't call it a flogger. I handed you the hand. But, like, Ron was like, "Yeah, it's all right. I've done it before."
Yeah, according to his wife, he doesn't do much anyway. So.
No, because it was really funny because his wife, bless her, had said to him, "Who chooses all these casks anyway?" He's like, "I do. That's my job."
Been doing it for probably since I met you.
I love it.
Played whiskey.
Yeah.
It was a nice event.
Yeah, it was a lovely kind of experience. It's a pity that they've stopped those kind of bear fairs in your.
It's not so much that they've stopped it. It's just it kind of stopped itself because there's so many Christmas fairs. Footfall was just dropping, and then it was just really hard. You know, like people who, the makers and the sellers and the crafters. There's just so much choice out there, so it's just getting harder and harder to get. You have to really book people in advance, and when with a production schedule, you don't always know when. We didn't always have that date set in mind because we had to wait to find out from the distillery manager like when the winter shutdown was going to be. So we couldn't book people that far in advance. So it just was like a natural kind of wind down. There will be something coming. It's not going to be the same, but we're looking to try and put something in place that's going to be as a new equivalent of like a winter sort of experience. But yeah, it was of its time and it was a lot of fun, but yeah, we just weren't really getting the same people coming through anymore. So, and then of course we use the malt a lot more now. You know, we weren't floor malting, so like that was just a big empty building that we could do stuff in.
Yeah,
but it's not quite the same anymore now.
Nay, like it was back in the day.
All right, Grandpa.
It's always harder when you start bringing in other people. Trying to corral and manage other people coming into an event just makes it much bigger headache.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is, to be honest. And you know, it's a distillery, so like the malt barns, it's always really, really cold. So bless, like all the crafters and you know the choir and stuff they'd all get freezing and like there's nothing we could do about that. You know, we've kind of taken, you know, let's light a fire, guys, on a wake combustible site. So like we were always quite
yeah. I think that might breach ATEX.
I think it might. Yeah. So I mean, I'd love to do more in the malt barns as well because it's such an awesome building. There's just something so atmospheric about it, especially the upper floors when they look out over.
You can put sleeping bags in the upper floors.
I'd love that. I do love the idea of doing like some sort of like mass sleepover. So it used to be barracks during World War II. Yeah. It was barracks for the soldiers, so that you know people did used to stay in there. But yeah, I don't know. I do keep playing around with the idea of I'd love to do a ceilidh in there, but it's like you got the big poles heading up the roof in the middle of the floor. So that would be a health and safety nightmare. You would just take one old wifey to bash her noggin off of that, and it would just ruin it for everybody.
Strip the willow in slightly the wrong place.
Yeah.
we did like didn't we launch the American Oak trilogy in the malt barns?
That was excellent. That was good fun.
Yeah, that was good. I remember. Do you remember the guy? So we did like this launch event, and we'd advertised it, and we were doing like
3 casks.
Yeah, 3 casks from 3 different states in the US. So Kentucky, Missouri, Minnesota, and this guy had cycled over from like somewhere not close by. Like he'd cycled quite a long way to get there. He sat through this whole event. You know, we were talking about whiskey. Like you know, there was food and whiskey pairings. Everything was to do with whiskey. At the very end, he's like, "Yeah, this has been really good fun, but when do the cars arrive?" We're like, "What cars?" He's like, I thought this was an American muscle car event. We're like, no.
Oh, the nightmare.
And I absolutely lost it. I couldn't stop laughing. I literally had to remove myself out of the room. And I was like, could somebody else go and deal with this man? Like, I just don't even know what to say to him. But
The American trilogy, I guess, was the
Yeah.
yeah, maybe he just had. I know.
Yeah. We're expecting a trio of classic muscle cars.
Yeah.
I think how we were going to get those into malt barns, I don't know. Like, I would have had my suspicions when I arrived, to be fair, at the distillery. But yeah, he had a nice time anyway. So
You did. Yeah.
I thought Mark would like to do a poker night in a warehouse. That would be. I wonder if you get away with that, to be honest. But that would be quite good fun.
Again, just a cold.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that I always find. The warehouses are just always colder than everywhere.
They are. They are always. That just made me think of something really random that I was going to say out loud, and I thought, no, I really have to have a filter, but I'm going to say it anyway. You know the Lady Gaga song "Poker Face"? I thought she was about poking somebody in the face for years, and I just thought she just had like a lot of anger issues. But it's not. The game.
When you watch the music video and it's just people like poking her in the face.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite bad jokes. How do you annoy Lady Gaga?
Poker face. Yes. Do you
The,
know what my favorite? Go on.
Not every one of the poker face lyrics in there is actually poker face. She's not saying poker face every single time.
I didn't know that. What is she saying then?
I'll let you draw your own conclusion. It sounds very similar.
She says like ooh rah 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 at one point.
Yeah, no, but like when one of the points where it sounds like poker face, it's not poker face.
All right.
I'm trying to figure out what it's going to be now. That's going to make me think. I'm going to go back. Yeah.
I don't think you have to be very imaginative.
The is still there, and the first word ends in K.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. She's admitted it recently that like no radio station picked up on it. So every radio station has played it completely unedited, and there are several occasions where she is not saying poker.
Stroker.
Ah, yes, exactly. She's saying stroker face.
No, that's not.
That's nice. Isn't she being nice? I'm going to go back and listen to that and see if I can figure out which time she says it differently.
There's a couple of times where it's a little bit. It sounds slightly distorted, and when you listen to it now, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's not a P. That's an F." And yeah.
Poker face.
That's close. Very close. Very close.
Is that Norwegian for something? Is it?
I think so, yeah. I'm still trying to remain slightly professional here.
It's all right. Everyone else has gone to bed.
Yeah.
Mark was saying they had them in the warehouse at Springbank. Warehouse
Gas
dinner.
heater.
Nothing safety was not consulted. Gas heaters in a warehouse.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you get those touchable heaters now, don't you?
Aye. You can get one of those like hot air, basically a big fan heater.
Yeah. There's ways of heating a warehouse, but then you're not allowed to heat a warehouse, are you? Artificially, it has to be natural heat. So how do you get away with that? Just don't tell anyone. I guess.
Tell nobody.
yeah.
Tell absolutely no one.
Nobody from SW is invited to that poker night. And when they ask, they say, "Well, you're just so good at it. We didn't want you to win everything."
Yeah, electric heated jackets would work, Jeremy.
Is that a thing? Do we have electric heated jackets?
Yeah. You get them on Temu.
Yeah, but then on Temu.
Well, you just plug yourself into the mains. Like, how do you
They usually run off like a power bank. You don't have to cut about with a giant extension. Just kind of reeling yourself off as you walk around the room and rolling it back in.
Although we
Makes
could do that for shopping in Iceland.
It's not so much a jacket if you can't go outside with it, if you're just stuck next to your standard lamp.
Sitting at home watching the telly, plugged into the wall.
Yeah, then that's just a blanket with arms. That's all that is.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing either. So there you go. Tonight's been educational for me. Honestly, I've learned a lot. Like, I'm glad I turned up. Absolute nonsense.
I mean, I do guess that when you get home with the electric jacket, that you have to plug it in to charge. Probably.
Well, you just plug your power bank in.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just plug a power bank. You have a power bank somewhere inside it.
Yeah.
But I don't imagine it would last that long. I imagine it would use quite a lot of power.
Maybe one of those, like the heat warmer, hand warmer, you crack it.
I would just crack your jacket.
Stick in the microwave and you get back to recharge.
It's a big microwave.
Yeah, but every time you went in for a hug, you would accidentally like crack the jacket and like these people start heating up.
That would be a big issue for you, being a hugger.
Only when I'm drunk. No one's safe when I'm drunk. I would literally hug anybody that walks past me. So yeah. Well, we definitely have covered all bases. What are you doing next, Stuart? Do you got many festivals and shows coming up that you're heading off to?
Yeah, a few bits and pieces. So obviously I'm here all day and all night tomorrow. I'm through in Aberdeen on Saturday, doing a barrel top at Aberdeen Whisky Shop. And then next week is Spirit of Speyside. So of course, a bunch of Torabhaig tastings during Spirit of Speyside. I just like to living in Speyside, it totally makes sense for me to invade.
Yeah.
So we've got a bunch of stuff. Festivals wise, what's next? I think the next festival might be Whisky Fringe. We've done slightly, or we're doing slightly fewer festivals this year, and a little bit more focused on some of the bigger ones and retailer festivals. Just we decided to kind of shift our focus onto them. So I think Whisky Fringe is the next one. So then that takes us properly into whisky season. But I'll be on Skye quite a bit over the rest of the summer. So I have a bit of a sales role on Skye. So I do about a week a month on Skye, basically in the on-trade. And then I also host at the distillery. In July, I'm off to Germany for 3 days, so that's to do with the launch of Sleat. Cool. So yeah, my planner is looking a bit mental, a bit kind of all over the place, which is I think just normal for every BA's planner. It's just it's chaos. I was talking to Cody from Angus Dundee last night, and we were just talking about the joy that is getting to spend 2 nights in the same hotel. That's such a rare pleasure that like you wake up one morning and you don't have to immediately pack.
Yeah. So
like I'm going to have that here. Like tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and be like, I don't need to pack. I can just get up and get ready and go about my day. It's ridiculous how
the little things in life.
Yeah, it makes, and it's like I think a lot of us we kind of almost we have our same kind of hotels that we stay in different cities, and it's the little things that just make your life a little bit easier, and a little bit more normality. So yeah, but it's cool. It's a job that, and I think a lot of BAs will feel the same. You have to love it because you're away from home so much, and if you don't absolutely love what you're doing, it would be impossible. It amazes. I'm always impressed at BAs who have young kids and are still on the road.
Yeah.
Like it's that one surprises me. I'm fortunate we have cats, so that I don't need to be there for them.
Yeah.
So my wife can deal with those.
Very independent.
So, but yeah, it is. So yeah, it's a busy rest of the year, but it's cool. Good.
That sounds exciting. Well, I might see you
Yeah.
at Spirit Speyside. I'll look out for
Okay.
you.
Cool.
Heading over for
Are you through for? Are you doing some events? Are you? What
No.
are you up to?
Not working, just there for pleasure. Going to go
Okay.
on.
What are you going to?
So undecided. I'm going to go and catch up with somebody that I know that's working over there. So spend some
Cool.
time with them. So yeah,
Right.
and then we'll just make a plan around about that. So yeah, just mooch about, try and blag my way into stuff.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's the. I mean, that's the nice thing about being in the industry is that you often can blag your way into things, which is quite nice.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you not seen me being covered in whiskey by Christopher Coates? Honestly, get YouTube on right now.
So we've got
Never
so
been over
next
Spirit.
week, Unkiltered next week, is it?
Yeah, so yes, I think it is. I looked this morning and forgot to take my diary in, but I think it is Luke next week. But
that'll be good fun. One of the newer indies on the market just now.
Yeah, really nice guy as well. Really speaks really well about what his brand and what he's doing, and I was really impressed with the stuff that I saw him at Fife. I was really impressed with the stuff they had at his stand. So yeah, it'd be good to get him on.
Awesome. Look forward to that. Should be good. And yeah, guys, if you're still watching, thank you.
Thank
we
you.
have broken the 3-hour mark yet again. I'm going to blame Kat for that because when she came on like 4 minutes late, we had to like pretty much do a full blether again.
Exactly. I mean, having to wait to catch up. Yeah, because she was lagging so much.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair enough.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Stuart. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thanks for
give us an extra night to join us.
Thanks for having me back on. It's been a good laugh again, and random, which is exactly what it's all about.
Yeah, I think we've all learned something.
Yeah, we have.
Whether it's about Lady Gaga or
the fact that a sound is swimmable.
Yeah, or geese
have leaves.
Aubergines are the catfish of the vegetable world.
More than just an emoji.
Yeah.
And who knew Glengarry did whiskey as well as tomatoes?
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a journey.
Absolutely. It's been a journey, absolutely. Good night, guys. We'll see you next week, if not before. Good night, folks.
Night.